My name is Marcus Chin, and at 24 I never expected my college graduation to become the day I finally stopped apologizing for who I am. Standing in that sea of black caps and gowns, waiting for my name to be called, I could hear my parents' whispered conversation 3 rows behind me in the family section. Such a disappointment. My mother's voice carried just loud enough for nearby families to hear. 4 years of college and still no direction. My father's response was equally cutting. Should have studied something practical like his sister. Engineering, not this liberal arts nonsense. I kept my eyes forward, hands folded in my lap, the familiar ache of their disapproval settling in my chest like an old friend. Before I reveal what happened when Dean Martinez made that announcement about the anonymous donor, let me know where you're watching from in the comments and hit that like button if you've ever felt like the family disappointment despite your best efforts. Growing up as the middle child in the Chin family meant living in perpetual shadow. My older sister Emma was the academic superstar, valedictorian MIT engineering degree, now designing aerospace systems for Boeing. My younger brother David was the athletic prodigy, state champion swimmer, full scholarship to Stanford Olympic training program. Then there was me, Marcus, who liked to read philosophy books and wrote poetry in his spare time. Our 2-story house in suburban Sacramento looked picture-perfect from the outside, complete with my mother's meticulously maintained garden and my father's luxury sedan always gleaming in the driveway. Inside, achievement charts tracked Emma's GPA and David's swim times. My name appeared sporadically, usually in smaller print, celebrating participation rather than victory. My parents, Dr. James Chin and Linda Chin, both successful professionals, Dad as a cardiologist, Mom as a financial advisor, had very specific ideas about success. It involved numbers, rankings, and clear career trajectories. My passion for literature and philosophy didn't translate well to their dinner table conversations about market portfolios and medical conferences. Poetry doesn't pay the bills, Dad would say whenever I mentioned my writing. When are you going to grow up and choose a real major? My junior year of high school, I won a regional creative writing competition. The prize was $1,000 and publication in a literary magazine. I rushed home, excited to share the news, only to find my parents celebrating David's latest swimming record. My announcement was met with polite nods before the conversation returned to David's potential for Olympic qualification. That night, I found my prize check sitting unopened on the kitchen counter. Beneath it, my mother had placed college brochures for business and pre-med programs. The message was clear. Your achievements don't matter unless they align with our expectations. The pattern continued through high school and into college. When I chose to study English literature with a philosophy minor at UC Davis, my parents treated it like a phase I'd eventually outgrow. They attended Emma's MIT graduation with pride, taking hundreds of photos and hosting a celebration dinner for 40 relatives. When David signed his Stanford scholarship, they framed the contract and hung it in the living room. My college acceptance letter was acknowledged with a brief congratulations, before Dad asked if it was too late to change my major to something practical. During my freshman year, I discovered I had a talent for understanding complex literary theories and philosophical concepts. My professors encouraged me to pursue graduate studies, possibly even a PhD. Professor Williams, my Victorian literature instructor, told me I had the sharpest analytical mind she'd encountered in 15 years of teaching. But when I called home excited about potentially pursuing academic research, Mom's response was predictable. How much do professors make? Can you support a family on that salary? By sophomore year, I'd learned to keep my academic achievements to myself. Dean's List honors, paper presentations at undergraduate conferences, research assistantships. None of it seemed to matter to my parents. They'd ask about my grades as an afterthought, usually while praising Emma's latest promotion or David's swimming victories. The real turning point came during my junior year. Professor Martinez, who taught my modern philosophy seminar, approached me after class one afternoon. "Marcus," he said, "I've been thinking about our discussion on social impact through intellectual contribution. Have you ever considered that success might not always look like what others expect?" That conversation stayed with me for weeks. I began researching social entrepreneurs, writers and thinkers who had created meaningful change through unconventional paths. I discovered stories of people who had built significant wealth and influence through creativity, innovation, and intellectual pursuits. That summer, instead of taking the internship at my father's medical practice that he'd arranged, I quietly started a small business. Using skills I'd developed in my philosophy courses, critical thinking, argument construction, ethical reasoning, I began offering consulting services to local nonprofits. Many organizations needed help with grant writing, strategic planning, and ethical frameworks for their programs. My first client was a literacy foundation struggling to articulate their mission for a major grant application. Using techniques I'd learned in my writing courses, I helped them craft a compelling narrative that secured $150,000 in funding. They paid me $2,000 for 2 weeks of work. Word spread quickly through the nonprofit community. Organizations valued my unique combination of analytical thinking, writing skills, and genuine passion for social causes. By the end of summer, I'd earned more money than David made from his part-time coaching job. But I didn't tell my parents. Not yet. Senior year began with the familiar family dynamics. Emma visited for Thanksgiving, regaling everyone with stories of her engineering projects and substantial salary. David shared updates from Stanford, his Olympic training progress, and his girlfriend who was also a competitive swimmer. When attention turned to me, I offered vague updates about my coursework and thesis project. Still planning to be a perpetual student? Dad asked during dessert. Emma was making 6 figures by your age. Not everyone can be as practical as Emma, Mom added with false sympathy. We just hope you'll find your way eventually. Behind their condescension, I was building something they couldn't see. My consulting business had grown to include clients across California. I specialized in helping education-focused nonprofits, literacy programs, and organizations working with underprivileged youth. The work felt meaningful, but it was also lucrative. By Christmas break, I'd saved nearly $50,000. But the money wasn't the point. Through my work, I'd discovered something that would change everything. Many of the organizations I worked with were struggling with the same fundamental problem: lack of access to quality educational resources. Libraries in low-income communities were understaffed and underfunded. Schools lacked basic books and technology. Students had academic potential but no support systems. That's when I learned about UC Davis's campaign to build a new library. The university had been fundraising for 3 years, but they were still $2 million short of their goal. The proposed library would serve not just university students, but the broader Sacramento community, with special programs for literacy education and community outreach. During winter break, I met with the development office. I didn't go as Marcus Chin, college senior. I went as Marcus Chin, consultant and potential donor. The meeting was with Sarah Rodriguez, the university's director of major gifts. She outlined the library project's vision: a state-of-the-art facility that would serve as a community hub, offering literacy programs, technology access, and educational support for underserved populations. The building would include spaces for tutoring, after-school programs, and adult education classes. The impact would be transformative, Sarah explained. We estimate serving over 10,000 community members annually, many of whom currently lack access to these resources. I asked detailed questions about the timeline, the specific programs, and the naming opportunities. When she mentioned that a $2 million donation would fund the entire community outreach wing, I knew what I had to do. I'd like to make a donation, I said. $2 million with specific conditions. Sarah's eyes widened. That's incredibly generous. May I ask about your connection to the university? I'm a current student, I replied. But I'd like the donation to remain anonymous until graduation day. Can you arrange for the announcement to be made during the commencement ceremony? The next few months were a whirlwind of legal paperwork, financial transfers, and careful planning. I liquidated my business savings, took out strategic loans against future earnings, and structured the donation through a private foundation I established. The legal work was complex, but my philosophy coursework had taught me to think systematically about complex problems. By March, the donation was complete. Construction on the new library wing began immediately, with completion scheduled for fall semester. The university was thrilled, but honored my request for anonymity until graduation. Meanwhile, my family continued their familiar patterns. Emma announced her engagement to a fellow engineer, complete with a celebration dinner and congratulations from extended family. David qualified for Olympic trials, earning local newspaper coverage and another family celebration. When I mentioned I was graduating summa cum laude with honors in both my majors, The response was muted congratulations before conversation shifted to Emma's wedding planning. "At least you'll finish college," Mom said with forced positivity. "Now you can start thinking about real career options." 2 weeks before graduation, I received the final construction photos from Sarah Rodriguez. The new library wing was beautiful, bright, modern, filled with natural light and designed to welcome learners of all ages. The community programs were already accepting applications, with overwhelming response from local families. "Your donation will literally change lives," Sarah wrote in her email. "Thank you for believing in our mission." But my parents remained unaware of everything I'd built. To them, I was still Marcus, the disappointment, the one who'd wasted 4 years studying impractical subjects while his siblings achieved real success. Graduation morning arrived with typical family dynamics. Emma and David flew in for the ceremony, their achievements dominating breakfast conversation. My mother spent 20 minutes discussing Emma's wedding registry while my father scrolled through David's latest swimming videos. "Try to look professional in the photos," Mom instructed as we prepared to leave for the ceremony. Emma's colleagues might see them on social media. The irony wasn't lost on me. In a few hours, everyone would understand exactly how professional I'd become. The graduation ceremony took place in the university's main amphitheater, a grand space that could hold 8,000 people. Families filled the tiered seating while graduates assembled on the field in neat rows organized by school and major. I sat with my fellow English and philosophy graduates, listening to the opening remarks and watching families in the stands. 3 rows up I could see my parents. Dad checked his phone periodically while Mom pointed out other families to Emma, commenting on their clothing choices and apparent success levels. David took selfies with his girlfriend, both of them looking slightly bored by the academic ceremony. The first part of the ceremony proceeded predictably. The provost spoke about academic achievement, the student body president delivered remarks about our shared journey, and various deans recognized graduating students from their schools. I walked across the stage when my name was called, shaking hands with Dean Martinez and receiving my diploma folder. The applause was polite but unremarkable. From the stands, I heard Emma's enthusiastic cheering. She was genuinely proud, even if our parents viewed my degree as a consolation prize. "Marcus Chin," the announcer said, graduating summa cum laude with dual honors in English literature and philosophy. My parents clapped politely. I caught my mother leaning over to whisper something to Emma, probably commenting on how long it had taken me to reach this basic milestone. What happened next changed everything. Dean Martinez returned to the podium for the final remarks. "Before we conclude today's ceremony," he announced, "I have a special recognition to share with our community." The amphitheater quieted as graduates and families focused their attention on the stage. 3 months ago, our university received an extraordinary gift, Dean Martinez continued. An anonymous donor contributed $2 million to fund our new community learning center, a library wing that will serve not just our students, but thousands of community members who need access to educational resources. Murmurs of appreciation rippled through the crowd. I remained seated, heart pounding, knowing what came next. This donation represents the largest single gift from a community member in our university's history, the dean continued. Today, our anonymous donor has asked to be recognized publicly for the first time. My parents were paying attention now, probably curious about which wealthy family was being honored. The donor's vision was simple but powerful. Education should be accessible to everyone, regardless of economic circumstances. This new facility will provide literacy programs, technology access, and educational support to over 10,000 community members annually. I could see Sarah Rodriguez standing in the wings, holding a large ceremonial check and a bouquet of flowers. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dean Martinez announced, "I'd like to ask our donor to join me on stage. Marcus Chin, please come forward." The amphitheater fell completely silent. 8,000 people turned to look at the graduating students, trying to locate the person whose name had just been called. I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady, and began walking toward the stage. The silence stretched, broken only by my footsteps and the distant sound of construction equipment from the new library wing. From the stands, I heard my mother's sharp intake of breath. "That's our Marcus," she whispered, confusion evident in her voice. As I climbed the steps to the platform, Dean Martinez beamed with pride. Marcus Chin, class of 2024, whose extraordinary generosity will impact our community for generations to come. The crowd erupted in applause, but I was focused on the family section. My parents sat frozen, staring at me with expressions I'd never seen before. Emma had tears in her eyes, her hand covering her mouth in shock. David had lowered his phone, finally paying complete attention. Sarah Rodriguez approached with the ceremonial elements of the recognition. Dean Martinez handed me a beautiful plaque commemorating the donation, while Sarah presented flowers and posed for photos. "Would you like to say a few words?" Dean Martinez asked, offering me the microphone. I accepted it with trembling hands and looked out at the sea of faces. Graduates, families, faculty, all waiting to hear from the 24-year-old who had just been revealed as a major philanthropist. "Thank you," I began, my voice stronger than I'd expected. When I started college 4 years ago, my parents worried that studying literature and philosophy wasn't practical. They thought I was wasting time on subjects that wouldn't lead to real success. I found my family in the crowd. My mother was crying now, though I couldn't tell if it was pride, shock, or regret. But what I learned in my literature courses was how to understand human stories, human needs, human potential. Philosophy taught me to think critically about social problems and ethical responsibilities. These impractical subjects gave me the tools to build a consulting business that serves nonprofits across California. The applause grew stronger. I could see my professors in the faculty section, beaming with pride. More importantly, these studies helped me understand that success isn't just about personal achievement. It's about using your abilities to create opportunities for others. This library will serve students like me who need quiet spaces to study, but it will also serve working parents trying to earn their GEDs, children who don't have books at home, and seniors learning to use computers. I paused, looking directly at my parents. Sometimes the most practical thing you can do is follow your passion and use it to serve others. That's what real success looks like. The standing ovation was thunderous. I handed the microphone back to Dean Martinez and returned to my seat, legs shaking from adrenaline. But the ceremony wasn't over. Dean Martinez had one more surprise. The university has voted to name the new facility the Marcus Chin Community Learning Center, he announced. A permanent reminder that education transforms not just individuals, but entire communities. If the previous applause was loud, this was deafening. The entire graduating class stood up, followed by their families, followed by the faculty. 8,000 people on their feet, celebrating not just my donation, but the principle it represented. I sat in my chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just happened. For 4 years I'd felt invisible, dismissed, undervalued. Now, my name would be permanently attached to a building that would serve my community for decades. When the ceremony concluded and graduates began finding their families, I walked slowly toward the family section. My parents stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking uncertain for the first time in my memory. My mother reached me first. "Marcus," she whispered, "we had no idea." My father looked stunned. $2 million? How is that possible? Before I could answer, Emma engulfed me in a hug. "I'm so proud of you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I had no idea what you were building." David, usually confident and articulate, seemed speechless. "Bro," he finally managed, "that was incredible." Other families began approaching, congratulating me and expressing amazement at the recognition. Parents who had previously overlooked me now wanted to know about my business, my future plans, my path to success. But I was focused on my own parents, who stood slightly apart from the crowd, still processing what they'd witnessed. "The consulting business," my father said slowly. "When did that start?" "Junior year," I replied. "I've been working with nonprofits, helping them with strategic planning and grant writing. The skills I learned in my literature and philosophy courses turned out to be exactly what they needed." My mother shook her head in disbelief. "Why didn't you tell us?" It was a fair question and one I'd been preparing to answer for months. "Because you'd already decided my choices were wrong," I said gently. Every conversation about my studies included criticism or suggestions to change direction. I needed space to build something without constant doubt and disapproval. The hurt in their eyes was evident, but so was the dawning recognition of their own role in my silence. "We thought we were helping," Mom said quietly. "We just wanted you to be secure, successful." "I am successful," I replied. "Just not in the way you expected." Over the following hours as we attended the reception and took family photos, the dynamics began shifting. Emma asked detailed questions about my business model and client base. David wanted to understand how I'd managed to save $2 million while still in college. My parents listened quietly, absorbing information about a son they realized they'd never really known. The photos from that day tell the story. In the earlier shots taken before the ceremony, I look tense and uncertain while my family appears confident and proud of Emma and David. In the later photos taken after the library announcement, everyone's expressions have changed. I look confident and proud while my parents appear humbled and reflective. That evening at the family dinner they'd planned to celebrate my graduation, the conversation was unlike any we'd ever had. Instead of defending my choices or explaining my plans, I found myself in the position of strength, sharing insights about social entrepreneurship and discussing my vision for expanding my consulting work. I've been invited to speak at 3 conferences this summer, I mentioned casually. Organizations want to understand how to blend profit with social impact. My father leaned forward. What kind of organizations? Universities, foundations, corporate social responsibility departments. Turns out there's significant demand for consultants who understand both business strategy and social justice frameworks. Emma smiled. Philosophy and literature aren't looking so impractical now, are they, Dad? My father had the grace to look embarrassed. Marcus, I owe you an apology. We've been wrong about your path and we've been wrong in how we've supported you. My mother nodded. We're proud of Emma's engineering success and David's athletic achievements because we understand those paths. But we never took time to understand yours. It was the first time either of them had acknowledged their bias, and it opened space for a conversation we should have had years earlier. I don't need you to understand everything I do, I said. But I need you to trust that I'm capable of making good decisions, even when they don't match your expectations. The weeks following graduation brought a series of adjustments. My parents began asking genuine questions about my work rather than offering unsolicited advice about career changes. They started sharing news of my achievements with extended family and friends, something they'd never done before. Emma and I grew closer as she expressed genuine interest in my consulting approach. Her engineering background and my philosophical training created interesting collaborative possibilities. We began discussing ways to apply social impact frameworks to technology projects. David, surprisingly, became one of my strongest supporters. He started sharing my story with his Stanford teammates, many of whom were interested in careers that combined athletic discipline with social entrepreneurship. Most importantly, my parents began recognizing that success can take many forms. They still worried about practical concerns like financial security and career stability, but they stopped assuming that unconventional paths were automatically wrong. The Marcus Chin Community Learning Center opened 3 months after graduation. The dedication ceremony drew over 500 community members, including many of the families who would benefit from the programs. I spoke briefly about the importance of accessible education, but the real stars were the community members who shared how the facility would impact their lives. Maria Santos, a single mother completing her GED, talked about finally having a quiet space to study while her children attended the center's after-school programs. James Wilson, a military veteran transitioning to civilian life, described the technology training that would help him pursue a new career in web development. 8-year-old Aisha Johnson read a poem she'd written in the center's youth literacy program. My parents attended the dedication, sitting in the front row and listening to speaker after speaker describe the center's impact. During the reception, my mother approached Maria Santos and had a long conversation about the challenges of returning to education as an adult. Your son created something beautiful, Maria told my mother. This place is going to change everything for families like mine. Later, my mother told me it was the first time she'd truly understood what my donation meant beyond the impressive dollar amount. I saw your success, she said. But today I saw your impact. The business continued growing throughout the summer. My client base expanded to include national organizations, and I hired 2 part-time assistants to help manage the workload. By fall, I was earning more annually than many of my peers who had chosen practical majors. But more importantly, I'd found a career that aligned with my values and utilized my skills. The critical thinking abilities I'd developed in philosophy courses proved invaluable for strategic planning. The analytical and communication skills from literature studies were essential for grant writing and program evaluation. My parents gradually acknowledged what Professor Martinez had tried to tell me years earlier. Success doesn't always look like what others expect. During Thanksgiving dinner that year, the family dynamics had shifted completely. Emma shared updates about her engineering projects, David discussed his training progress, and I talked about my consulting work and community impact. But instead of competing for attention or approval, we found ourselves supporting each other's different paths. "I've been thinking," my father said during dessert, "about starting a foundation focused on healthcare access in underserved communities. Marcus, would you be interested in helping with the strategic planning?" It was the first time he'd asked for my professional expertise, recognizing that my skills might be valuable for his own philanthropic goals. "I'd love to help," I replied. "But I think you might be surprised by what effective philanthropy requires. It's not just about writing checks." He smiled. "I'm beginning to understand that. Your approach with the library, the research, the strategic thinking, the community engagement, that's exactly what I need to learn." 6 months later, we launched the Chin Family Foundation together. My parents provided the funding, but I developed the framework for identifying effective programs and measuring social impact. Emma contributed technological solutions for program delivery, while David designed fitness and wellness components for our healthcare initiatives. What started as a family disappointment had become a family collaboration, with each of us contributing our unique strengths to shared goals. The most profound change, though, was in how my parents understood success itself. They began talking about Emma's work not just in terms of salary and prestige, but in terms of how her aerospace innovations could benefit society. They started asking David about his plans for using his athletic platform to promote youth fitness and education. And they stopped apologizing for my choices or suggesting alternative careers. Instead, they introduced me as our son Marcus, who runs a social impact consulting firm and funded the new Community Learning Center at UC Davis. 1 year after graduation, I was invited to give the commencement address at UC Davis. Standing at the same podium where Dean Martinez had announced my donation, I looked out at a new class of graduates and their families. "1 year ago, I sat where you're sitting," I began, listening to my parents whisper about what a disappointment I was. They worried that studying literature and philosophy was impractical, that I was wasting my education on subjects that wouldn't lead to real success. I found my parents in the family section smiling proudly. But what I discovered is that success isn't about choosing the most obviously practical path. It's about developing your abilities and using them to create value for others. Sometimes the most practical thing you can do is follow your passion and apply it to solving real problems. The applause was warm and encouraging, but I was focused on one specific message. If you're sitting here today feeling like the family disappointment, if your choices don't match others' expectations, if you're pursuing something that seems impractical to people who love you, remember that they can only see the beginning of your story. The middle and end might surprise everyone, including yourself. After the ceremony, dozens of students and parents approached me with questions about unconventional career paths, social entrepreneurship, and following passion while building security. Many shared stories similar to mine, feeling dismissed or undervalued because their interests didn't align with family expectations. But the conversation that mattered most was with my own parents. "We're sorry it took us so long to see," my mother said as we walked across campus toward the Marcus Chin Community Learning Center. "We thought we were protecting you from disappointment, but we were actually creating it." My father nodded. "We measured your worth by Emma and David's achievements instead of recognizing your own path. That was our failure, not yours. You weren't wrong to want security and success for me," I replied. "You just had a narrow definition of what those look like." We spent an hour touring the learning center, watching community members of all ages engaged in various programs. The facility was bustling with activity. Children in the literacy program, adults learning computer skills, teenagers getting homework help, seniors participating in book clubs. "This is your legacy," my father said, watching an elderly man help a young girl with her reading. Not just the building, but the connections, the opportunities, the lives changed. As we prepared to leave campus, I reflected on the journey from disappointment to recognition. The transformation hadn't just been in my circumstances. I'd been building success all along. The real change was in how my family understood and valued that success. Driving home, my mother asked about my future plans. Did I want to expand the consulting business? Was I considering graduate school? What about marriage and family? But her questions had a different tone now. She wasn't asking because she doubted my choices or wanted to redirect my path. She was asking because she was genuinely interested in my life and proud of what I was building. I'm exactly where I want to be, I replied. Building something meaningful, using my skills to create opportunities for others, proving that unconventional paths can lead to extraordinary outcomes. 2 years later, as I write this story, the business has grown to serve clients in 12 states. The Chin Family Foundation has funded educational programs serving over 5,000 students. Emma and I are collaborating on technology solutions for nonprofit organizations. David is using his athletic success to promote youth development programs. Most importantly, my parents have become genuine supporters rather than skeptical observers. They brag about my achievements to their friends, ask thoughtful questions about my work, and trust my judgment about major decisions. The family disappointment became the family success story, not because I changed direction, but because they learned to see the value in the direction I'd chosen all along. If you're reading this as someone who feels undervalued or misunderstood by people who love you, remember that external validation is less important than internal conviction. Build something meaningful, serve others authentically, and trust that the right people will eventually recognize your worth. Sometimes the most profound success comes from proving that the path others couldn't see was exactly the right one for you. Have you ever felt like the family disappointment despite your accomplishments? How did you find the courage to pursue your path despite others' doubts? Share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if this journey of turning disappointment into triumph resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the people who believe in you least can motivate you most. Not to earn their approval, but to prove to yourself just how extraordinary your unconventional path can become.
The email arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, 3 days before the gala that would change everything. Do not trust your family. Urgent. Evidence enclosed. The sender was Nicole Hansen, a name I didn't recognise, with a Gmail address that screamed investigative journalist. I almost deleted it. Almost. My name is Serenity, and I've spent 32 years being the family fixer, the reliable daughter, the one who makes everything work while my brothers take credit. That night, staring at my laptop screen in my pristine Manhattan apartment, I had no idea I was about to become something else entirely. You're overthinking again! Caitlin's voice cut through my spiral as she refilled our coffee cups the next morning. We were sitting in our usual corner booth at Cafe Luna, the place where we dissected every major life crisis since college. It's probably spam. Spam doesn't usually come with financial documents. I slid my phone across the table, showing her the attachments I'd been too afraid to open. Look at the file names. Foundation, Irregularities, 2019-2024, PDF, Townsend Offshore Accounts.LX. Caitlin's perfectly manicured eyebrows shot up. As the Foundation's PR director, she knew our books better than anyone except Gemma, our COO. Have you opened them? Not yet. I wrapped my hands around my mug, seeking warmth I couldn't find. What if it's nothing? What if it's everything? Serenity. Caitlin leaned forward, her voice dropping to that tone she used when she was about to say something I needed to hear. When was the last time your father acknowledged a single thing you've done for the Foundation? The question hit like a slap. Yesterday's board meeting flashed through my mind. Me presenting the quarterly report I'd spent weeks perfecting, Dad barely glancing up from his phone. The Foundation wouldn't exist without you, he'd said once, years ago, after I'd saved us from a PR nightmare involving Kingsley's wandering hands at a donor event. But it needs a man's vision to truly succeed. He introduced me as our little organiser to the Times reporter last week, I said quietly. Jesus, Caitlin shook her head. And Kingsley? Called my strategic plan cute in front of the entire executive committee. The memory still burned. Said it was adorable how women focus on the details while men see the big picture. And Vince? I laughed, but there was no humour in it. Vince told me I should consider marriage and children instead of playing businesswoman. This was after I increased our donor retention rate by 30%. Caitlin was quiet for a moment, stirring her coffee with more force than necessary. Your grandmother would be furious. That stopped me cold. Grandma Eleanor had built the Townsend Foundation from nothing, turning her late husband's modest insurance payout into a $50 million empire dedicated to women's education. She'd been gone 3 years now, but I still felt her presence in every decision I made. She used to tell me stories, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, about the early days when men would pat her on the head and tell her to leave the real work to them. She'd smile and nod, then outmaneuver them so completely they never saw it coming. She left you something, didn't she, in the trust? I nodded. The reading of Grandma's will had been a circus. Dad and my brothers practically salivating over their expected inheritance, only to discover that the foundation's structure was far more complex than anyone realised. The lawyers had been deliberately vague about the details, speaking in legal jargon that made everyone's eyes glaze over. But I remembered Grandma's lawyer, old Mr. Harrison, catching my eye and giving me the slightest nod. She always said the foundation would be safe as long as I was watching over it. I pulled out my phone again, thumb hovering over Nicole's email. Maybe it's time I found out what that really means. Open it, Caitlin said firmly. Whatever it is, we'll deal with it together. I tapped the first attachment. The PDF loaded slowly, revealing page after page of financial records, bank statements, and transaction logs. My coffee went cold as I scrolled through evidence of something that made my stomach drop. Kate, I whispered, turning the screen toward her. Look at this. Her face went pale as she read. These are foundation accounts, but I've never seen these transactions before. Neither have I. My hands were shaking now. And I sign off on everything. The second attachment was worse. Screenshots of text messages between my brothers discussing creative accounting and keeping the girls in the dark. Email chains about offshore accounts and donor funds being redirected for maximum impact. They've been stealing, Caitlin breathed, for years. I stared at the evidence of my family's betrayal, feeling something cold and sharp crystallise in my chest. All those years of being dismissed, diminished, treated like an inconvenient child playing dress-up in the grown-ups world. All while they were systematically destroying everything Grandma had built. My phone buzzed. Another email from Nicole. The gala is in 3 days. They're planning something big. We need to talk. I looked up at Caitlin, who was still scrolling through the documents with growing horror. Kate, I said, my voice steady for the first time in years. How would you feel about burning it all down? The grand ballroom at the plaza gleamed like a jewel box. Every detail perfect because I'd spent 3 months orchestrating it. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in foundation blue, each centerpiece a small fortune in white orchids. 500 of New York's wealthiest donors mingled with champagne flutes, their laughter echoing off marble walls. I stood near the back, watching my life's work unfold, knowing it would be the last time. You outdid yourself, Gemma appeared at my elbow, elegant in navy silk. As our COO, she'd helped coordinate the evening, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Everything looks flawless. It should. I smoothed my black dress, the one I'd chosen specifically because it looked like armour. I've been planning this for months. Serenity, Gemma's voice dropped. I've been going through those files you sent. The discrepancies go back further than we thought, much further. Before I could respond, the lights dimmed. Dad took the stage, resplendent in his custom tuxedo, arms spread wide like he was embracing the entire room. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Townsend Foundation's annual gala. Applause thundered through the ballroom. I watched him bask in it, this man who'd never written a single grant proposal, or comforted a scholarship recipient, or stayed up until 3 a.m. fixing a crisis he'd created. Tonight, we celebrate 25 years of changing lives through education, Dad continued, his voice carrying that practiced warmth that made donors open their wallets. But more importantly, we celebrate the future of this foundation. My stomach clenched. This wasn't in the script we'd rehearsed. As many of you know, my daughter Serenity has been instrumental in our day-to-day operations. His eyes found mine across the room, and I saw something cold there. However, running a foundation of this magnitude requires more than just administrative skills. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Caitlin grabbed my arm from beside me. What is he doing? She whispered. The foundation needs leadership that can make the hard decisions, Dad continued. Leadership that isn't clouded by emotion or personal attachment. That's why I'm announcing tonight that Serenity will be stepping back from her operational role, effective immediately. The room went silent except for the clink of champagne glasses being set down too hard. I felt every eye in the ballroom turn toward me, some pitying, others curious, a few openly delighted at the spectacle. Kingsley stepped forward, his smile sharp as a blade. Dad's right. Serenity's done great work, but she gets too invested, too emotional about individual cases instead of seeing the bigger picture. Exactly. Vince joined them on stage, the three of them forming a wall of masculine authority. We need strategic thinking, not feelings. The foundation is entering a new phase of growth, and that requires a different kind of leadership. The kind only men can provide, apparently, I said, loud enough for the front tables to hear. Dad's smile never wavered. Serenity, perhaps you'd like to say a few words, thank everyone for their support during your tenure. The invitation was a trap, designed to make me look gracious in defeat or bitter in defiance. Either way, I'd be diminished. I walked toward the stage, my heels clicking against marble, feeling like I was walking to my own execution. Thank you, Dad. I took the microphone, looking out at faces I'd cultivated relationships with for years. Mrs. Patterson, who'd increased her donation after I personally walked her through our scholarship programme. The Hendersons, who'd started giving because I'd shown them exactly how their money helped. I want to thank everyone here for supporting the Foundation's mission. Such grace under pressure, Vince murmured into his mic, loud enough for everyone to hear. This is exactly what I mean about emotion over strategy. Something snapped inside me. You're absolutely right, Vince. I am emotional about this foundation. I'm emotional about the fact that we've helped over 3,000 women get college degrees. I'm emotional about the single mothers who've called me crying because our childcare grants meant they could finish nursing school. I'm emotional about making sure every dollar donated actually reaches the women who need it. The last part came out harder than I'd intended. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. And that's beautiful, Dad said, taking back the microphone. But emotion can't guide a $50 million organisation. That requires vision, strategy, and the ability to make tough choices without getting personally involved. I stepped back, letting him reclaim the spotlight, but I caught Gemma's eye. She gave me the slightest nod. The files were ready. As Dad launched into his speech about masculine leadership in philanthropy, I slipped away from the stage. The crowd's attention was fixed on his performance, no one noticing as I made my way to the back of the ballroom. My phone buzzed. A text from Nicole. Watching the live stream. Perfect timing. Check your email. Now. I ducked into the coat check area and opened her message. The subject line made my blood freeze. Trust documents. Your grandmother's real will. The attachment was a single page, dense with legal language, but one paragraph stood out like it was written in fire. In the event that Serenity Eleanor Townsend is removed from her position within the Foundation through discrimination, manipulation, or bad faith, she shall have sole and immediate control of the Foundation's entire endowment, with full authority to dissolve or restructure the organisation as she sees fit. My hands were shaking as I read it again and again. Grandma hadn't just protected me, she'd given me a nuclear option. From the ballroom, I heard Dad's voice. So please join me in toasting the future of the Townsend Foundation, a future guided by proven leadership. I smiled for the first time all evening. They had no idea what they'd just triggered. Raquel's apartment smelled like jasmine tea and old books, the same scent that had clung to Grandma's study. She opened the door before I could knock, her silver hair perfectly coiffed despite the early hour. I wondered when you'd come, she said, stepping aside to let me in. Eleanor always said you'd figure it out eventually. You knew about the trust clause? I followed her into the living room, where legal documents were already spread across her coffee table like she'd been expecting me. Honey, I helped her write it. Raquel settled into her armchair, gesturing for me to sit. Your grandmother spent 2 years with lawyers, making sure every loophole was closed. She knew exactly what kind of men your father and brothers were. I picked up one of the documents, recognising Grandma's neat handwriting in the margins. She planned this whole thing. She planned for the possibility. Eleanor hoped she was wrong about them, but she wasn't naive. Raquel poured tea from a delicate china set. She watched your father dismiss your ideas in board meetings. She saw how your brothers treated you like a secretary instead of the brilliant woman who actually ran everything. Why didn't she tell me? Because you needed to choose this yourself. If she'd handed you a weapon, you might never have developed the strength to use it. Raquel's eyes were sharp despite her age. But watching you get humiliated on that stage, Eleanor would be furious. My phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. Answer it, Raquel said. You'll need to know where she stands. Serenity! Mom's voice was strained. We need to talk. Can you come over? I'm busy, Mom. Please. Your father he's very upset about last night. He thinks you're planning something. I met Raquel's knowing look. He's right. I am. Silence stretched across the line. Serenity, whatever you're thinking, please don't. This family has been through enough. This family has put me through enough. He's your father. He's a misogynist who just publicly humiliated me to protect his ego. Don't say that. Mum's voice cracked. He loves you. No, Mum. He loves controlling me. There's a difference. I hung up and turned back to Raquel, who was watching me with approval. Your mother will choose him, she said matter-of-factly. She always has. I know. The words tasted bitter. What else do I need to know about the trust? Everything transfers to you the moment you invoke the clause. The entire endowment, all assets, complete control. Your father and brothers will have exactly zero authority over anything, and they can't fight it. Eleanor made sure of that. The trust is ironclad. Raquel leaned forward. But honey, using this power will destroy your family. Are you prepared for that? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Gemma. Emergency. Can you meet me at the office? Found something big. I stood up, tucking the trust documents into my purse. Raquel, if I do this, will you help me? Eleanor asked me to watch over you if this day ever came. She smiled, and for a moment I saw the fierce woman who'd helped build the foundation from nothing. I'd been waiting 30 years to see the Townsend men get what they deserve. 20 minutes later, I found Gemma in her office, surrounded by printouts and looking like she hadn't slept. Tell me you have good news, I said, closing the door behind me. Depends on your definition of good. She handed me a stack of bank statements. I've been tracing the irregular transactions. Your brothers haven't just been skimming donations. They've been running a full-scale money laundering operation. What? Look at this. She pointed to a series of transfers. Donations come in, get moved to these shell companies, then transferred to offshore accounts. The money disappears for months, then comes back clean as consulting fees or speaking honorariums. I flipped through the pages, seeing my family's crimes laid out in black and white. How much? Over the past 5 years, nearly $8 million. Jesus. I sank into a chair. How did they hide this from the auditors? They didn't hide it. They bought them. Gemma pulled out another file. The auditing firm? Your cousin Damien's company. He's been signing off on fraudulent reports for years. Damien's involved too. Up to his neck. And there's more. She hesitated. I think they're planning to pin this on you. What do you mean? Some of these transfers were authorised with your digital signature. Forged, obviously, but good enough to fool a casual investigation. The room spun around me. They're setting me up to take the fall. It looks that way. If this ever comes to light, you're the one with access to the accounts. You're the one who handles day-to-day operations. They've been very careful to keep their own hands clean. My phone rang again. This time it was Nicole. I need to see you, she said without preamble. Tonight. I'm publishing the story tomorrow, whether you cooperate or not, but I'd rather have your side of it. What story? The one about how the Townsend Foundation has been defrauding donors for years. The one about how 3 men destroyed their own family's legacy through greed and stupidity. Her voice was sharp with professional excitement. This is going to be front page of the Times, Serenity. The question is whether you want to be portrayed as a victim or a hero. I looked at Gemma, who was watching me with concern and something else. Hope, maybe. Where do you want to meet? I asked Nicole. The Carlisle. Bar area, 9 o'clock. After I hung up, Gemma leaned forward. What are you thinking? I'm thinking my grandmother gave me the keys to the kingdom for a reason. I stood up, feeling something cold and determined settling in my chest. And I'm thinking it's time to use them. The trust clause? The trust clause. I headed for the door, then turned back. Gemma, How quickly can we liquidate the Foundation's assets? Her eyes widened. Have we had the authority? 24 hours. Good. Because after tomorrow night's board meeting, we're going to own everything. What about your family? I thought about Dad's smug smile, Kingsley's condescending pat on my shoulder, Vince's dismissive laugh. About Mom choosing her husband over her daughter as always. What about them? The Carlyle's bar was dimly lit, perfect for clandestine meetings. Nicole sat in a corner booth, her laptop open, fingers flying across the keys. She looked exactly like I'd imagined. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, the kind of woman who'd built her career on exposing powerful men's secrets. Serenity? She stood as I approached, extending her hand. Thank you for coming. You said you're publishing tomorrow regardless. Why do I need to be here? Because I want to get this right, she gestured to the seat across from her. And because I think you're planning something that could either be brilliant or completely destroy you. I sat down, ordering a whiskey neat when the waitress appeared. What makes you think I'm planning anything? Because you're Eleanor Townsend's granddaughter. And because I've been investigating your family for 6 months, I know about the trust. How? Your grandmother's lawyer, Harrison, was my source. He died last month, but not before he made sure someone would continue watching over you. Nicole pulled out a thick folder. He wanted you to have this when the time was right. Inside were copies of every document Raquel had shown me, plus dozens more. Bank records, email chains, recorded phone calls, a complete dossier of my family's crimes. Harrison recorded everything, Nicole continued. Every conversation with your father about keeping Serenity in line. Every meeting where your brothers discussed their offshore accounts. He knew they'd eventually push you too far. And you're going to publish all of this? I'm going to publish the financial crimes, yes. The embezzlement, the money laundering, the donor fraud. But the personal stuff, the way they've treated you, that's your story to tell. My phone buzzed. A text from Caitlin. Emergency board meeting called for tomorrow at 2 p.m. They're moving fast. I showed Nicole the message. They know something's wrong. Good. Let them panic. She leaned forward. What's your play? I'm going to invoke the trust clause, take control of everything. And then? Burn it all down. Nicole smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. But you'll need more than just legal authority. You'll need public support. And that means controlling the narrative. What do you suggest? We coordinate. I publish the financial crime story tomorrow morning, right before your board meeting. By the time they walk into that room, every major news outlet will be calling for investigations. You'll have all the leverage. I finish my whiskey, feeling the burn settle in my chest. What do you need from me? An exclusive interview after you take control. The real story of what it's like to be dismissed and undermined by your own family for years. Deal. The next morning, I sat in Caitlin's office watching her pace while we waited for Gemma to arrive with the final paperwork. Are you sure about this? Caitlin asked for the 10th time. Once you trigger that clause, there's no going back. There was no going back the moment they humiliated me on that stage. Gemma burst through the door, her arms full of legal documents. It's done. I prepared all the transfer orders. The moment you invoke the trust clause, every asset moves to your control. What about the new foundation? Foundation for Women's Economic Independence is officially registered as of this morning. Bank accounts are open. Board of directors appointed. Gemma grinned. Caitlin and I are your co-founders, by the way. And the staff. I've been quietly reaching out. Most of them are ready to jump ship. They're tired of watching incompetent men take credit for their work. My phone rang. Scarlett Grant's name appeared on the screen. Serenity, darling! Her voice was artificially bright. I heard about the board meeting today. Such drama. What do you want, Scarlett? Well, I thought you should know that Vince has been bragging about his Caribbean retirement fund to anyone who will listen. Apparently, he's been skimming donations for years. I put the phone on speaker so Caitlin and Gemma could hear. He actually said that. Oh, honey, he said much more. Would you like to hear the voice message he left me last week? The one where he talks about moving money to the Cayman accounts before anyone notices. You recorded him? I record everything, darling. Occupational hazard of dating powerful men. Her laugh was sharp. Vince thought he could dump me, and I'd just disappear quietly. Men never learn. Send me everything you have. Already done. Check your email. After she hung up, I opened the files she'd sent. Audio recordings, screenshots of text messages, even photos of bank statements Vince had carelessly left on his desk. "This is it," Gemma said, reviewing the evidence. "This proves everything. The offshore accounts, the money laundering, all of it." "Perfect timing too," Caitlin added, checking her phone. "Nicole's story just went live. It's already trending on Twitter." I pulled up the article on my laptop. The headline made me smile. "Townsend Foundation executives accused of massive donor fraud." "Look at this!" Gemma pointed to her phone. "The foundation's main line is ringing non-stop. Donors are furious." "And your father's been calling you every 5 minutes," Caitlin added, showing me my missed calls. 17 times in the last hour. Let him sweat. I stood up, straightening my blazer. "It's time for the board meeting." "Are you ready for this?" Gemma asked. "I've been ready my whole life." We walked into the boardroom together, finding Dad, Kingsley, and Vince already seated at the head of the table. Their faces were grim, but I could see panic in their eyes. "Serenity," Dad said, his voice carefully controlled. "We need to discuss this unfortunate news story." "Do we?" I took my usual seat at the far end of the table, placing the trust documents in front of me. "I think we need to discuss something else entirely." "The Times article is full of lies," Kingsley said. "We're going to sue them for libel." "With what money?" I asked sweetly. "The money you've been stealing from donors?" Vince leaned forward. "You need to be very careful about making accusations you can't prove." "Oh, I can prove them!" I opened my laptop and turned it toward the room. "Would you like to hear your voice message to Scarlett? The one where you brag about your Caribbean retirement fund?" The colour drained from Vince's face. "Or maybe you prefer to see the bank records showing $8 million in fraudulent transfers," I continued. "The ones with your digital signatures all over them?" Dad slammed his hand on the table. "Enough! You're clearly having some kind of breakdown. This behaviour is exactly why we had to remove you from operational duties." "Actually, Dad, you removing me from operational duties is exactly why I'm here." I pulled out the trust documents. "Because according to Grandma's will, discriminatory removal from my position triggers a very interesting clause." "What clause?" Kingsley demanded. I smiled. "The one that gives me complete control of the foundation, effective immediately." The silence in the boardroom stretched like a taut wire. Dad's face had gone from red to white to an alarming shade of purple. "That's impossible," he finally managed. "I've read every word of that trust. There's no such clause." "You read the summary your lawyers gave you." I slid the original documents across the table. "You never bothered to read what Grandma actually wrote." Kingsley snatched up the papers, his eyes scanning frantically. "This can't be legal. We'll contest it." "With what legal team?" Gemma spoke for the first time since entering the room. "The one you can't afford because your accounts are about to be frozen." "What are you talking about?" Vince's voice cracked. "The FBI Financial Crimes Unit received an anonymous tip this morning," I said, checking my phone. "Something about suspicious offshore transfers. They should be here with warrants any minute." As if on cue, voices echoed from the hallway. Heavy footsteps, official-sounding conversations. "You called the FBI?" Dad's voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't have to. Turns out, when you steal $8 million from a registered charity, people notice." I stood up, gathering my documents. "The trust clause is now in effect. As of this moment, I have sole control of all foundation assets." "Serenity, please." Mom's voice came from the doorway. She stood there in her perfectly pressed suit, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Can we talk privately?" "We can talk right here, Mom, in front of everyone." "Your father made mistakes, but destroying the family won't fix anything." "The family destroyed itself." I turned to face her fully. "Where were you when they were calling me too emotional to do my job? Where were you when they were stealing from the women we're supposed to help? I didn't know about the money, but you knew about everything else. You knew how they treated me, and you said nothing." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "He's my husband, and I'm your daughter. You're asking me to choose." "I'm not asking you to do anything, Mom. I'm telling you what I'm going to do." The FBI agents appeared in the doorway, badges visible, faces serious. "Jeffrey Townsend, we have a warrant to search these premises and seize financial records." Dad stood up slowly, his hands shaking. "This is a misunderstanding. My daughter is having some kind of mental breakdown." "Sir, We're going to need you to step away from any computers or filing cabinets. Serenity! Vince hissed as the agents moved into the room. You have no idea what you've done. This will destroy all of us. Good. My phone buzzed. A text from Damien. Heard about the FBI raid. We need to talk. I have information you'll want. I showed the message to Caitlin, who raised an eyebrow. Your cousin wants to make a deal, she whispered. Probably trying to save his own skin. Another text from Damien. Meet me at the Starbucks on 47th in an hour. Come alone. I know about the Cayman accounts. I'm coming with you, Caitlin said when I showed her the second message. He said alone. He's part of this mess. You can't trust him. I don't trust him, but I need to know what he knows. An hour later, I sat across from Damien in the crowded coffee shop. He looked nervous, constantly checking over his shoulder. You really did it, he said, stirring his latte with shaking hands. You actually brought down the whole operation. Your operation too, apparently. I was just the accountant. I didn't know how deep it went until it was too late to get out. So why are you here? Because I have something you need. He pulled out a flash drive. Complete records of every transaction, every forged signature, every lie they told the auditors, everything. Why would you help me? Because they threw me under the bus the second the FBI showed up. Your father told them I was the mastermind, that I manipulated him and your brothers into the scheme. I almost laughed. And you believed they'd protect you. I was stupid, but I'm not going down alone. He slid the flash drive across the table. There's something else. They're planning to claim you knew about everything. They have forged emails, fake meeting minutes, documents that make it look like you approved all the transfers. I figured they'd try something like that. It's worse than you think. They're going to say you had a mental breakdown when you found out about the investigation, that you invoked the trust clause to cover up your own crimes. My blood ran cold. They can't prove that. They don't have to prove it. They just have to create enough doubt to tie up the trust in court for years. Damien leaned forward. But this drive has everything. Timestamps showing when the forgeries were created, audio recordings of them planning to frame you, bank records proving they controlled the offshore accounts. What do you want in exchange? Immunity. A letter stating I cooperated with your investigation. I'm not the FBI, Damien. No, but you're about to be the most powerful woman in philanthropy. Your word will carry weight. I pocketed the flash drive. I'll consider it. Serenity, wait. He grabbed my arm as I stood to leave. There's one more thing. They're not done. Your father called an emergency family meeting for tonight. They're planning something big. What kind of something? I don't know, but he mentioned hiring private investigators to dig up dirt on you, and he's been talking to some very expensive lawyers about having you declared mentally incompetent. The coffee shop suddenly felt too warm, too crowded. They can't do that. They can try. And with enough money and the right legal team, they might succeed. Damien's grip tightened. You need to move fast. Whatever you're planning for the gala tomorrow night, do it tonight instead. I pulled free from his grasp. Why are you really helping me? Because I've watched them destroy everything they touch for years. And because... He paused, looking genuinely pained. Because your grandmother was the only person in this family who ever treated me like I mattered. I walked out of the coffee shop with my head spinning. The flash drive felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket, and Damien's warning echoed in my ears. My phone rang. Nicole's name flashed on the screen. The story's exploding, she said without preamble. Every major outlet is picking it up. But I just got a call from a source at the Times. Your father's people are shopping a counter-narrative. They're claiming you're having a breakdown. I know. We need to move up our timeline. How much? I checked my watch. The gala's tomorrow night, but we're doing this tonight. Can you be ready? I've been ready for months. What do you need? Everything you have on my family. And I mean everything. Consider it done. Serenity? Yeah. Your grandmother would be proud. I hung up and called Caitlin. Change of plans. We're not waiting for the gala. What happened? They're trying to have me declared incompetent. We move tonight or we lose everything. The plaza's ballroom looked different at 7 p.m, 3 hours before the gala was supposed to start. Staff rushed around, making final preparations while I stood in the wings, watching my family hold court near the main entrance. The early arrivals are already asking questions, Caitlin whispered, appearing at my elbow. Word about the FBI raid is spreading fast. Good. Let them talk. I adjusted my black dress, the same one I'd worn to my public humiliation 3 days ago. Tonight, it would serve a different purpose. The tech crew is in position, Gemma reported, joining us. Nicole's people have the live stream ready. We go live the moment you give the signal. My phone buzzed. A text from Nicole. Counter-story just published. Your father's claiming you embezzled the money and are trying to cover it up with false accusations. We need to move now. They published their version first, I told Caitlin and Gemma. We're behind. Not for long, Gemma said grimly. I just uploaded Damien's files to the Foundation's website. Every forged document, every recorded conversation, everything. The board members are arriving, Caitlin observed, nodding toward the entrance. They look confused. I watched as Mrs. Patterson and the Hendersons entered, their faces tight with concern. These were people who trusted us with millions of dollars over the years. People who deserved the truth. Serenity! Dad's voice boomed across the ballroom as he approached, flanked by Kingsley and Vince. His smile was strained, desperate. There you are. We need to present a united front tonight. Do we? The media is spreading lies about our family. We have to show them we're stronger than their attacks. What lies, Dad? The ones about you stealing $8 million, or the ones about you trying to frame me for it? Vince stepped forward. You're making a mistake, Serenity. We have lawyers, private investigators. We know about your mental health issues. What mental health issues? The ones documented by Dr. Morrison, Kingsley said smugly. Your therapist from college? She kept very detailed notes about your instability. I felt the blood drain from my face. You contacted my therapist from 15 years ago. We contacted everyone, Dad said. Your professors who noted your emotional outbursts in class. Your ex-boyfriend who will testify about your obsessive behaviour. We have a pattern of mental instability going back decades. You bastards. Language, sweetheart. See? This is exactly the kind of emotional reaction we're talking about. The ballroom was filling up now. Donors and board members mingling uneasily. I could hear fragments of conversation. FBI raid, embezzlement, family drama. Ladies and gentlemen, Dad's voice cut through the chatter as he moved toward the microphone. Thank you all for coming tonight, despite the unfortunate rumours circulating about our foundation. I felt Caitlin's hand on my arm. It's time. I nodded to Gemma, who signalled the tech crew. The large screens around the ballroom flickered to life, showing the Foundation's logo. I want to address these false accusations directly, Dad continued, his voice carrying that familiar authority. My daughter Serenity has been under tremendous stress lately, and I'm afraid that stress has led to some very poor decisions. The screens changed, now displaying bank records. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as people recognised the offshore account numbers. What you're seeing, Dad pressed on, not noticing the screens, is the result of a young woman's mental breakdown. Serenity has been embezzling donations for years, and when she realised she was about to be caught, she decided to blame her family. That's interesting, Dad. I stepped into the spotlight, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system. Because these bank records show that you and my brothers controlled those offshore accounts. Dad spun around, finally seeing the screens. His face went white. And this, I continued as the display changed to show email chains, is you and Kingsley discussing how to keep the girls in the dark about your money laundering operation. Turn those screens off, Vince shouted at the tech crew, but they ignored him. This is my favourite part, I said, as audio began playing through the speakers. Vince's voice filled the ballroom, bragging to Scarlett about his Caribbean retirement fund. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Several board members were already heading for the exits, phones pressed to their ears. You're having a breakdown, Dad grabbed the microphone from me. Everyone can see that. This is exactly what we're talking about. Am I having a breakdown, Dad? Or am I finally fighting back? You're destroying everything your grandmother built. No. I took the microphone back, my voice steady and clear. I'm saving it from you. The screens now showed the trust documents, highlighting the clause that gave me control. As of 3 days ago, when you publicly removed me from my position based on gender discrimination, I became the sole owner of this foundation's $50 million endowment. That's not legal, Kingsley shouted. It's completely legal. And as my first act as the foundation's new owner, I'm dissolving it. Effective immediately. The ballroom erupted. Donors were shouting questions. Board members were demanding explanations, and my family was falling apart in real time. The money will be transferred to a new organisation, I continued over the chaos, one dedicated to helping women who've been silenced, dismissed, and underestimated by powerful men. Serenity, please! Mum appeared beside the stage, tears streaming down her face. Don't do this! I already have, Mum. Dad lunged for me, but security stepped in. You'll regret this, he screamed as they held him back. You'll have nothing. No family, no money, nothing. I looked out at the chaos I'd created, at the empire crumbling around me, at the family that had never really been mine. I already had nothing, Dad. Now I have everything. The live stream counter showed 50,000 viewers and climbing. Nicole's story was trending worldwide. And somewhere in the crowd, I could hear people starting to applaud. The applause started slowly, scattered claps from the back of the ballroom. Then it built, rolling forward like a wave until half the room was on their feet. The other half stood frozen, phones out, recording everything. This is insane! Kingsley grabbed for the microphone, but I stepped back, keeping it out of reach. What's insane, I said, my voice carrying over the noise, is that 3 men thought they could steal millions from women's education and get away with it. The screens changed again, now showing a live feed of the Foundation's bank accounts. The numbers were dropping in real time as transfers executed automatically. $50 million, I announced. Moving right now, from the Townsend Foundation to the Foundation for Women's Economic Independence. You can't do this! Dad's face was purple now, veins bulging in his neck. I'll have you arrested. For what? Using my legal authority to transfer my own money? It's not your money. Actually, it is. I held up the trust documents. Has been since the moment you fired me for being too emotional. Nicole appeared at the edge of the stage, her phone recording everything. Serenity, can you comment on your father's claims that you're mentally unstable? I think the evidence speaks for itself, Nicole. The only unstable thing here is a financial house of cards built on theft and misogyny. The viewers want to know, what's your message to other women who've been silenced by powerful men? I looked directly into her camera. Don't wait for permission to fight back. Don't wait for someone else to save you. And don't feel guilty about burning down systems that were designed to keep you powerless. The ballroom was chaos now. Security was escorting several board members out while others crowded around the screens, trying to understand what they were seeing. Mrs. Patterson pushed through the crowd toward me. Serenity, dear? She said, her voice shaking. Is it true? Did they really steal from us? Every word is true, Mrs. Patterson. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Don't apologise. Her eyes were fierce despite her age. I've been watching men dismiss brilliant women my entire life. It's about time one of them fought back. This is a coup, Vince shouted, pointing at me. She's stealing our foundation. Your foundation, Gemma stepped up to the microphone. The one you've been looting for 5 years? The one where you forged Serenity's signature on dozens of fraudulent transfers? We have proof of everything, Caitlin added, joining us on stage. Every forged document, every fake signature, every lie you told the auditors. Dad was pacing now like a caged animal. You think you've won? You think this is over? I'll destroy you in court. I'll have you committed. You'll what, Dad? I cut him off. Sue me with the legal team you can't afford. Fight me with the money you don't have. Your accounts are frozen, remember. The FBI seized everything this morning, Gemma confirmed. Personal accounts, business accounts, even your credit cards. Mum appeared beside Dad, clutching his arm. Geoffrey, please, let's just go home. Home? He laughed bitterly. What home? She's probably stolen that too. I didn't steal anything, I said. But the house is in the Foundation's name, so technically, you're throwing your own parents onto the street. Mom's voice broke. You threw me under the bus to protect thieves. They're your family. No, Mom. Family doesn't humiliate you in public. Family doesn't forge your signature to cover up crimes. Family doesn't try to have you declared mentally incompetent when you fight back. The live stream counter now showed over 200,000 viewers. Comments were flooding in faster than I could read them, but I caught glimpses. Queen behaviour. This is how you do revenge. Destroy them, Serenity. The story's gone viral. Nicole reported, checking her phone. Every major news outlet is picking it up. Townsend takedown is trending worldwide. This isn't over, Dad screamed as security finally moved to escort him out. You hear me? This isn't over. Yes, it is, I said quietly, but the microphone picked it up. It's been over since the moment you decided I wasn't worth respecting. Kingsley and Vince were already gone, slipping out through side exits like the cowards they'd always been. Mum lingered for a moment, looking at me with something that might have been pride, or might have been grief. I hope you know what you've done, she said. I know exactly what I've done. I've given $8 million back to the women you stole it from. She turned and walked away without another word. The ballroom was emptying now, donors and board members streaming toward the exits. Some looked disgusted, others impressed. A few approached the stage to shake my hand or offer support for the new foundation. How does it feel? Nicole asked, still recording. I looked around at the wreckage of my family's empire. Broken champagne glasses littered the floor. The screens still showed bank balances dropping to zero. The foundation that had defined my entire life was gone, dissolved in a single evening. It feels like justice, I said. Any regrets? I thought about Grandma, about all the women we'd helped over the years, about the scholarships that would continue under a new name with better leadership. Just one, I said, that it took me 32 years to do it. The live stream ended, but the cameras kept rolling. Tomorrow the world would wake up to the story of how one woman brought down a dynasty with nothing but the truth and her grandmother's trust. Tonight, I was finally free. The morning sun streamed through my office windows as I signed the last scholarship approval of the day. Sarah Martinez, single mother of 2, full ride to nursing school. I smiled, thinking about how different her life would be in 4 years. Knock, knock. Caitlin appeared in my doorway, holding 2 coffee cups and grinning. Ready for your close-up? Is it time already? I glanced at the clock. The 60 Minutes crew would be here any minute for the follow-up interview. 6 months since the gala, she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. Hard to believe how much has changed. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Townsend brothers sentenced. Kingsley gets 8 years. Vince gets 12. I showed Caitlin the headline. Couldn't have happened to nicer guys, she said dryly. Me too? What about your dad? Still fighting the charges. His new public defender seems optimistic about getting him down to 5 years. And your mum? I set down my coffee, the familiar ache settling in my chest. Radio silence, Grace. She moved to Florida to stay with her sister. Sent the divorce papers through her lawyer. I'm sorry. Don't be. She made her choice. The intercom buzzed. Ms. Townsend, the CBS crew is here. Send them in. Leslie Stoll entered with her usual commanding presence, followed by cameras and sound equipment. We'd spoken briefly 6 months ago, right after the story broke, but this was the deep dive. Serenity, Leslie said, shaking my hand. Thank you for doing this. The public is fascinated by your story. Happy to set the record straight. We settled into the interview chairs as the crew finished setting up. Leslie's first question came without preamble. Do you ever regret destroying your family? I didn't destroy my family. I exposed criminals who happened to be related to me. But the cost, your relationship with your mother, the public scrutiny, the death threats from your father's supporters, was it worth it? I gestured around the office, where photos of scholarship recipients lined the walls. We've helped over 300 women in 6 months, women who were told they weren't smart enough, weren't worth investing in, weren't capable of more. So yes, it was worth it. Your critics say you're vindictive, that this was about revenge, not justice. My critics are mostly men who are terrified that other women might follow my example. Leslie leaned forward. Speaking of examples, you've become something of a folk hero online. Young women are calling it pulling a serenity when they stand up to workplace discrimination. How does that feel? Terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Why terrifying? Because I never wanted to be a symbol. I just wanted my family to stop treating me like I was worthless. The interview continued for another hour, covering everything from the FBI investigation to the new foundation's rapid growth. When the cameras finally stopped rolling, Leslie lingered. Off the record, she said. I've been covering powerful families for 30 years. What you did takes incredible courage. Or incredible stupidity. Maybe both. That's what makes it brave. After the crew left, I found myself alone in the office as evening fell. The building was quiet except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of traffic. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Serenity. It's Damien. I hadn't spoken to my cousin since he'd given me the flash drive. What do you want? I wanted to thank you. The immunity deal came through. I'm testifying against your father next week. Good. And I wanted to apologise. For everything. For being part of it. For not speaking up sooner. For... Damien, stop. You helped when it mattered. That's what counts. The family's completely fractured, you know. Half of them think you're a hero. Half think you're a traitor. What do you think? I think you're the only one who had the guts to do what needed doing. After he hung up, I walked to the window overlooking Central Park. The city sparkled below, full of women fighting their own battles against systems designed to diminish them. My computer chimed with a new email. The subject line made me smile. Scholarship application, Maria Santos, age 45, dreams of law school. I was about to open it when another email arrived. This one made my breath catch. From Raquel Butler. Subject, your grandmother would be proud. The message was short. Eleanor always said the foundation would be safe in your hands. She just never told me how spectacular the rescue would be. Dinner Sunday? I have more stories about the early days you might enjoy. What are? I typed back quickly. Dinner sounds perfect. Thank you for everything. As I gathered my things to leave, I caught my reflection in the dark window. The woman looking back at me was different from the one who'd walked into that gala 6 months ago. Stronger, maybe. Lonelier, definitely. But free in a way I'd never been before. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from an unknown number. Saw you on the news. You inspired me to report my boss for harassment. Thank you for showing us how to fight back. A grateful stranger. I smiled, tucking the phone into my purse. Tomorrow there would be more scholarship applications to review, more women to help, more battles to fight. Tonight I was going home to my quiet apartment, my rescued cat, and the peace that comes from knowing you've chosen truth over comfort. The elevator doors closed, and I descended into the city that had watched me burn down an empire and build something better from the ashes. Some people called it revenge. I called it justice. Either way, it was mine.
I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing over and over. At first, I thought maybe someone was trying to wish me a happy birthday. Maybe a friend remembered. Maybe it was a long-lost aunt sending a nice message like, I hope today feels special. But when I picked up my phone, it was none of that. The message was from my dad. It said, sold your laptop. Your brother needs an iPhone. Be grateful we feed you. That was it. No greeting. No kindness. Just those cold words. My name is Lauren, and wherever you are, please listen to this. On my birthday, I didn't get a cake. I didn't get a hug. I didn't even get a simple happy birthday. What I got was something stolen from me again. And this time, they didn't realize they were messing with the wrong person. That laptop wasn't just any laptop. It was mine. I worked hard for it. I saved money from tutoring and from working part-time at the diner. It wasn't just a computer.
It was what helped me keep my scholarship.
It was my way to learn, to write, to connect with the world. It was my freedom. But to them, it was just something to sell so my brother could get a new phone. I stared at the message in silence. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Then another message came. It said, also, you'll pay us $1,500 for college by Saturday. No explanation. No question. Just an order like I was some servant they owned. I sat up in bed. The blanket was still wrapped around my legs. For the first time in a long time, I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just a strange, empty feeling in my chest. It had happened again. My whole life, I had always come second to my brother. When I got into honors classes, my parents barely said a word. When my brother passed gym class, they threw him a celebration. When I brought home that laptop after working so hard for it, they only said, finally, you're starting to help out. But when he wanted a new iPhone, they took what I earned and gave it to him. I replied with 2 words, no chance. 15 seconds later, another message popped up. It said, then get out. You're cut off. That was it. No talk. No apology. No care. Just like that, I was no longer part of the family. I stood up slowly. I packed my things without making a sound. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I had been expecting something like this. I had been saving and planning just in case. What they didn't know was that I was ready. I was stronger than they thought. And I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. I was still the quiet, obedient girl. I didn't argue. I stayed silent when they treated me badly. I kept saying thank you for the little things they gave me. They had no idea what I had been planning for months. I had slowly been moving my savings into a private bank account. I had changed the password to the college tuition portal so they couldn't get in. I had also already arranged a place to live through my scholarship mentor, just in case I ever needed it. They didn't see it coming, but soon they would. I walked into the kitchen. No one else was home. The sink was full of dirty dishes. A banner that said "Happy Birthday, Tyler" from last year still hung above the window, old and curling at the edges. I sat down at the table and took out a large brown envelope. I had written on it 4 weeks ago, "If they ever kick me out." Inside, I had put everything I needed to leave. There were printed bank statements, records of money I had taken out, and a letter I had written to his college saying I was no longer responsible for my brother's tuition. I had sent that email the night before. There was also a short letter. It said, "You didn't raise me. You just used me. This account is now empty. So am I of apologies." I put the envelope right in the middle of the table. Then I left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. There was no loud music playing, just the soft sound of the door clicking shut behind me and the cold air hitting my face. For the first time in years, I felt free. The next morning, I heard all about it. My brother was panicking. My mom was shouting. My dad was calling every number he could think of, trying to fix things. But it was too late. I was only 11 the first time they took something that was mine and gave it to my brother. I had won a blue digital camera in a school raffle. It was the first thing I had ever won. I loved it. I kept it in a shoebox under my bed. I took pictures of flowers, old family photo albums, and anything that made me feel like I could keep a moment safe forever. One day, the camera was gone. I looked everywhere. I asked my mom where it was. She didn't even look up from her phone. She just said, "Oh, we gave it to your brother. He needed it for a school project. Be grateful it's being used." That was her favorite thing to say. Be grateful we feed you. Be grateful you have a roof. Be grateful he's your brother. But she didn't want gratitude. She wanted silence. They called it parenting. But it wasn't love. It was control. By the time I was 13, I called it stealing. I knew not to say anything in the fridge was mine. My leftovers would be gone. My birthday presents were given to my brother. I only got allowance if I reminded them, and even then, I had to share it. He got birthday parties, driving lessons, new shoes just because he liked them. I got his old stuff and a quick pat on the back if I didn't complain too much. The worst part? He didn't even want most of it. He was lazy, yes. Spoiled for sure. But sometimes I saw it in his eyes. A bit of guilt, or maybe shame. When Dad handed him something and said, "We took this from Lauren for you." He never said no. That made him part of it too. When I won the science fair in middle school, they left early to go to my brother's basketball game. He didn't even play that night, just sat on the bench. Mom told me after, "You'll have more fairs." He never had another game. I stopped inviting them to things after that. By high school, I had learned the rules. Work quietly. Succeed without showing off. Pay for your own future. And most of all, never be better than your brother. Even when I got into a college prep program, they didn't ask what I needed. They only asked if my brother could join too. He couldn't. But that didn't stop them from asking me to tutor him. I did. I even helped him write his college essay. Then last year, he failed 2 classes and lost his scholarship. Who did they call? Me. Not to talk, not to explain, just to say, "Your brother needs to stay in school." Dad said, "We all have to make sacrifices." I asked, "When has he ever sacrificed anything?" He said nothing, because he couldn't name one thing. It wasn't just that I was ignored. I was useful. The one they could blame. The backup plan. The daughter they used when it was easy, then tossed aside when I said no. So when they sold my laptop, it wasn't just stealing. It was the final blow. Happy birthday, Lauren. You're still the supply room. But they forgot one thing. I had already stopped helping them. They thought I'd just accept it. The laptop they sold. The demand for $5,200. The birthday text that didn't even say my name. They thought I'd get angry for a bit, cry in my room, then hand over the money and say, "It's fine. I understand." But the truth is, I stopped understanding a long time ago. I started getting ready for this months ago, right after they took $1,000 from my bank account without asking. Something changed in me. Not loud, but final. Like a quiet click when a door locks behind you. That night, I opened a new bank account. Just in my name. I set up 3-step security. No paper mail. Then I began moving my money slowly. Small amounts at first. $95 here, $250 there. So they wouldn't notice. I closed my student account, sent my financial aid to the new one, and got a tutoring job online. They paid me through an app only I controlled. My family still thought they had access. They believed the old family account, the one used for my tuition and savings, was the only one I had. They didn't know it was empty, and that all that was left was a note I left in an envelope on the kitchen table. This account no longer exists, just like your control over my future. In that same envelope, I left a copy of the email I sent to my school's finance office. To whom it may concern, I, Lauren Roberts, officially remove myself as responsible for Adam Roberts' tuition, housing, or any other accounts. I am no longer a cosigner, and I will not send any more money. Documents attached. I also added a signed form, taking away my parents' access to my student account, and a copy of my approved request to move into a new apartment across town, paid for by a grant. Most of my things were already packed. My backup laptop, important documents, and the only photos I cared about, one with my high school mentor. No family in any of them. The night before I left, I slept like a rock. Not nervous, not scared. Just finished. They always thought they had control over me. But the truth is, they were only holding on to the version of me that I had already outgrown. I had left a long time ago. The real me was already gone. When I put that manila envelope on the kitchen table, it wasn't to be mean. It was a goodbye letter. Not a daughter saying, "Please see me," but a grown woman saying, "I saw everything, and I'm done." I left before the sun came up, took the bus to my new place, dropped my bags on the floor, sat on the mattress, cross-legged, and listened to the silence. It didn't feel empty. It felt clean, like I had finally closed a door I was never meant to open in the first place. The first call came at 5:55 a.m. I didn't answer. Then came the text. "Where is the money? Call me right now." You think this is funny? Your mother is crying. I set my phone on the counter and made black coffee. By 6 a.m., my brother's name filled the screen. "Hey, what did you do?" They're freaking out. They said you cleared the account. You need to call Dad. I'm serious. My tuition's due today. I stir my coffee, watch the steam, listen to a kind of peace I never had in their house. At 6:32 a.m., Dad tried to FaceTime me. I declined, then declined again. He left a voicemail. His voice was calm, but fake. I knew that tone well. "You've made your point. Now grow up and fix it. Your brother needs that money." No apology. No, we went too far. Just fix it. Because that's who I always was to them. The fixer. The one who filled in the gaps. Made the payments.
Took the blame.
They never once asked how I was.
Not even now.
It took until 8:05 a.m. for them to realize I was serious. I wasn't hiding in my room. I was gone. They drove to my college apartment. I had already cleared it out the night before. Left the keys in the mailbox. Changed the lock. They called my friends, no one answered. They called my campus counselor. She pointed them to the student privacy policy. Then Dad messaged again. This is betrayal. We raised you better than this.
I almost laughed. Raised me?
I raised myself between borrowed textbooks and part-time jobs, while they treated my brother's birthdays like national holidays. By noon, I still hadn't replied. That's when the panic really started. Just give us access to the account. That's all we need. Just the money. Then we'll talk. It was always about what they needed. They weren't upset because I left. They were upset because I took the control with me. For once, when they reached for the Lauren drawer, it was empty. My brother broke first. Lauren, please. I'm screwed.
They told me you'd pay.
You always pay. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, for the first time in my life, I typed without shaking. Not anymore. He answered with 3 words. They're losing it. And I believed him. Because that's what happens. When people who use others lose the one they depend on, they fall apart. I didn't block them. Not yet. I wanted them to feel it. What silence sounds like. When it's finally not coming from me. Because this time, I wasn't just quiet. I was done. The first real crack didn't come from yelling inside their house. It came from the outside, when their lies couldn't cover things anymore. My brother's tuition was due Saturday. I had already cut every legal tie to his account. No cosigner. No emergency contact. No backup payer. The school had all the documents. I triple-checked. So when the payment failed, it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a delay. It was on purpose. By Tuesday morning, he was removed from his dorm. By Thursday, a notice went up on his student portal. Payment required to return. He didn't post anything publicly, not right away. But the news spread fast. The boy whose parents bragged about his bright future, whose sister always handled everything, suddenly wasn't enrolled. And I hadn't said a word. But silence, I've learned, makes noise. When people are used to you always saying yes. On Friday, he finally snapped. He posted a blurry photo on Instagram. A coffee shop table, a textbook, and a bitter caption. Family will act like they support you. Until they don't. Abandonment is real. Especially from the ones who owe you everything.
Oh.
I owed him. The girl who gave him her textbooks, fixed his essays, taught him how to handle money. I owed him. I didn't respond. But I wasn't the only one watching. My old high school English teacher, Mrs. Henry, a sharp, kind, fearless, she commented on the post. Funny how, when someone finally speaks the truth, the one who worked the hardest gets pushed aside. Now they're calling it abandonment. Mrs. Henry's comment stayed up for 17 minutes before my brother deleted the story. But it was too late. People started asking questions. A classmate messaged me privately. Didn't you used to do everything for your brother? He's acting like you just vanished. It doesn't add up. Another friend sent me a screenshot of my dad's old FB post, the one bragging about how his daughter was managing her brother's education like a second mother. That was just last year. Now they were calling me ungrateful. But the proof didn't lie. I had emails, bank records, screenshots, evidence of every dollar they pulled from me. And even though I hadn't posted anything, my silence said more than a post ever could. Because when someone always shows up, and then suddenly doesn't, people notice. That night, my mom called again, left a voicemail, soft, sweet, fake. You've made your point, sweetheart. Just come back. We'll talk it through. We're family. But I knew better. They didn't miss me.
They missed what I did for them.
Now that their story was falling apart, the golden child image, the perfect family act, they wanted their scapegoat back. To fix it.
To carry it.
To clean it up. Not this time. This time, the glass house cracked. And I wasn't the one holding the broom. By then, I knew they had read the envelope. My brother texted me. Was that letter necessary?
Yes, it was.
Not for them, for me. That envelope wasn't revenge. It was proof. A record. A goodbye to a childhood no one protected. Tucked inside, with all the bank papers and school forms, was one handwritten letter. Just one page. Folded. The ink smudged in one corner. It said, "To whoever still thinks they own me.
You didn't raise me. You used me.
You used my time, my energy, my silence. You turned everything I worked for into a gift for someone who didn't care, who only wanted more without earning it. You gave him everything. You took everything from me. And when I asked for one small thing, like keeping what I paid for, you told me to be thankful. You feed me." So, let's be clear. I fed myself. When I worked shifts while studying, when I taught myself how to budget, because no one else did, when I wrote 2 college essays, one for me, one for him, I was still doing everything. But now I'm done. I'm not your backup parent. I'm not your proof of good parenting that you show off on FB when it suits you. I'm your daughter in name only. And, starting today, not even that. You don't get to demand from someone you ignored. You don't get to yell ungrateful at the person who kept your house running in silence. You don't get to take my voice, then beg me to speak. When everything starts to fall apart, you told me to leave.
Perfect.
Because I've never felt more at home than I do now outside your walls. Not out of hate. Out of healing. Lauren, that's what the envelope meant. It wasn't about money. It wasn't even about the laptop. It was about putting the truth in front of them. In words.
In ink.
Clearly and finally. To show that the girl they raised to always bend had finally stood up. And this time, they didn't have the strength to push her down. My dad never replied. My mom called twice, then hung up. And my brother? He posted a gym selfie 3 days later, with the caption, "Can't trust anyone these days. But at least I still have me." I looked at it for a second, then closed the app, because that was the point. He does still have himself. And for the first time, he has to stand on that and only that. No more lifeline. No more quiet sister taking the blame. No more invisible engine pushing him forward. He was exposed. And me? I was finally seen. Even if they never said it. Even if they never will. Because when you leave the truth on the table, sometimes the loudest thing in the house is the silence that follows. I didn't run away. I walked out. There's a difference. Running means fear. Running means panic. But walking is a choice. The day I walked away from that house, that family, that endless cycle of control pretending to be care, I didn't look back. My new apartment wasn't fancy. A mattress on the floor, one chair, a kitchen that needed cleaning. But it was mine. Every inch of it untouched by their needs, their rules, their guilt. And for the first time in my life, I let out a real breath. Not a quick one. A deep one. One that reached the parts of me I hadn't felt since I was a kid. I worked weekends at a clinic, finished the semester on time, and started therapy, paid for with a student wellness grant. In my first session, my therapist asked, "What would healing look like to you?" I said, "Freedom." She nodded and asked, "What kind?" I smiled and said, "The kind where I don't jump when my phone buzzes." 3 weeks later, I turned off my notifications. For weeks after that, I started sleeping better. One night, I bought myself a cake. Nothing fancy, just a plain vanilla cake with one candle. It was 3 months after my birthday, but I didn't care. I lit the candle, took a bite. No family, no fake smiles, no gifts being taken and given to someone else. Just me and my birthday, the real one, the one that belonged to me and no one else. That same night, I applied for an internship across the country, a research program I once told myself I couldn't do because it would take me too far from my family. Now, that was the point. I hit submit. A week later, I got the call. I was accepted. I screamed. I cried. Then I laughed so hard it hurt. Not because of the program, but because I realized something I hadn't told anyone. And it felt perfect. I wasn't doing it to prove anything. I wasn't trying to get praise. I was finally building a life that was just for me. The next morning, I got a letter in the mail from one of my old professors. She had always pulled me aside and said, "You're stronger than you think." In her letter, she wrote, "Lauren, you were never lost. You were just stuck in a house that never saw the map you were holding." I pinned that letter to my wall, right above the desk where I plan my future. New city, new job, new version of me. Not the fixer, not the scapegoat, not the sister who was expected to give up everything for a brother who never even said thank you. I wasn't the girl who stayed. I was the woman who left. 7 months later, my name was called in a packed lecture hall. I walked up to get a certificate for academic leadership and research excellence. Lauren Roberts. The claps were real. Earned. Not the forced applause of family. Not pity. Just people who saw the work, not the drama. Someone snapped a photo as I smiled and held the award. I didn't post it, but someone else did. A student I had mentored during the program. They posted the photo with a caption, "This woman is the reason I stayed in STEM." Strongest person I know. The post made its way around. A few people tagged me, a few shared it. Then somehow, it showed up on my brother's feed. He left one comment. "Congrats." No emoji. No sarcasm. Just that. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. Because by now I had nothing to prove. No lies to fight against. No space left in my mind for people who once lived there rent-free. Later that day, my mom messaged me, "Your brother misses you. We all do. It's time to come home. Family is family." I stared at the message. Then I deleted it. Not to be mean, but to protect my peace. Because now I understood what cutting off really meant. They thought they were cutting me off because of money, but I was cutting them off from access. Access to my time, my energy, my forgiveness whenever they wanted it. They wanted control. What I gave them instead was a legacy, one my future self would thank me for. A life built on boundaries, not blind loyalty. The letter I left on the table that day wasn't a tantrum. It was a goodbye to the version of me they treated like their personal savings account. And now, I'm not just the girl who survived it all. I'm the woman who planned her way out. There's a photo on my desk now. It's not of my family. It's of my hand holding a scalpel, standing beside a group of other young women in lab coats. The ones I now mentor. The ones who tell me, "You make me feel like I belong here." And that's the only family I ever needed. They sold my laptop. They stole my birthday. They thought they were taking my future, and I let them think that. But what I left on that table wasn't a breakdown. It was a blueprint. Because when I walked out, I didn't just leave. I ended everything they thought they still controlled.
I was 12 when I realized I was invisible. My name is Summer, and that day I'd spent 3 hours building a volcano for the science fair. Perfect papier-mâché, meticulously painted, with a working eruption mechanism I'd figured out from library books. I was so proud, practically vibrating with excitement as I waited for Mom and Dad to come see. They burst through the door, but not for me. Wyatt, my 10-year-old brother, had apparently scored the winning goal in his soccer game. The celebration was immediate and loud. Dad lifting him up, Mom taking a million photos, neighbours called over to hear the play-by-play. My volcano sat forgotten on the kitchen table. "That's nice, honey," Mom had said when I finally got her attention, barely glancing at my project. Very volcanic. 19 years later, sitting at this same kitchen table, I'm watching the exact same scene play out. Different props, same script. So, the property values in that area are about to explode, Wyatt says, gesturing wildly with his fork. I'm talking a complete transformation. Luxury condos, artisanal coffee shops, the whole gentrification package. Dad leans forward like Wyatt's revealing the secrets of the universe. How much are we talking about investing? 200,000 to start, maybe 300 to really make it sing. Mom clasps her hands together. "Oh, Wyatt, you're so brilliant, just like your father was at your age." I take a sip of wine and try not to roll my eyes. Wyatt's 29 and has exactly 0 successful business ventures under his belt. His last brilliant idea was a food truck that sold gourmet grilled cheese. It lasted 3 months before the health department shut it down. What about permits? I ask. Zoning laws? Have you actually researched the area's development restrictions? The table goes quiet. 3 pairs of eyes turn to me like I've just suggested we sacrifice a goat. Summer, Dad says in that patient tone he uses when I'm being difficult. Let your brother explain his vision. I'm just asking practical questions. The beauty of this opportunity, Wyatt continues, completely ignoring me, is that I've got insider information. A buddy of mine works for the city planning department. This area is about to be rezoned for mixed-use development. Insider information? I set down my wine glass, harder than necessary. That sounds like smart business, Mom interrupts. Wyatt's always been so good at networking. Of course he has. Wyatt could charm a snake into buying its own venom. Meanwhile, I've been working as an administrative assistant at a law firm for 8 years, steadily climbing from receptionist to office manager, and my parents still introduce me as our daughter who's really good with, paperwork. Actually, I say, I've been thinking about some investment opportunities myself. There are some really interesting properties in the downtown area that... Oh, sweetie! Mom reaches over and pats my hand like I'm still 12. Real estate is so risky. You have such a stable job. Why would you want to jeopardize that? Because maybe I want more than stable. Speaking of which, Dad interrupts, we need to talk to you about something important. Here it comes. I can see it in their faces, that mixture of excitement and guilt that means they're about to ask me for something while pretending it's for my own good. We've decided to take out a second mortgage on the house, Mom says, to help fund Wyatt's project. The words hit me like a slap. You're mortgaging the family home? It's an investment in all our futures, Dad says. When Wyatt's development takes off, we'll all benefit. And what if it doesn't take off? What if it fails like the food truck or the app idea or the organic dog treat business? Wyatt's face flushes. Those were learning experiences that cost Mom and Dad thousands of dollars each time. Summer, Dad's voice carries a warning. Your brother is trying to build something here. The least you can do is be supportive. Supportive? Right, like I've been my whole life, watching from the sidelines while they pour money and attention into Wyatt's dreams while treating mine like cute hobbies. Of course I'm supportive, I lie. I just think we should be realistic about the risks. That's why we need you to stay grounded, Mom says. Someone in this family needs to keep their feet on the ground. You're our safety net, honey, our reliable one. Their safety net, their backup plan, never their first choice, never their pride and joy, just their insurance policy against Wyatt's inevitable failures. I smile and nod and help clear the dishes, playing my role perfectly. The good daughter, the responsible one, the one who'll pick up the pieces when everything falls apart. But later that night, alone in my apartment, I open my laptop and start researching property listings. I've been saving money for years, living modestly while my parents funded Wyatt's fantasies. I've got enough for a down payment, maybe 2 if I'm careful. They want me to be their safety net? Fine. But this time I'm building my own foundation first. They'll never see me coming. Summer, can you make 15 copies of this contract and have them ready by lunch? Of course, Mr. Peterson. I take the papers from my boss with a smile that doesn't reach my eyes. Another thrilling day at Henderson and Associates, where my biggest challenge is keeping the coffee machine stocked and remembering which partner likes their documents stapled versus paper-clipped. But that's fine. Let them think I'm just the reliable admin who keeps their office running. They have no idea that last night I spent 3 hours analysing cap rates and cash flow projections for a duplex in the Riverside district. My phone buzzes with a text from Myla. Coffee after work, found 3 more properties. Mila Blake is the only person who knows what I'm really doing. We met 2 years ago at a financial literacy workshop. She was the instructor, I was the student who stayed after to ask about investment strategies. She's a financial analyst at a mid-sized firm, brilliant with numbers and completely unimpressed by flashy presentations. In other words, everything my family isn't. Absolutely, I text back. The usual place. The usual place is a coffee shop downtown, far enough from my neighbourhood that I won't run into anyone I know. Mila's already there when I arrive, laptop open, surrounded by printouts and highlighters. Okay, so I ran the numbers on those 3 properties you flagged, she says without preamble. The duplex on Maple Street is a solid buy. Good bones, decent neighbourhood, rent potential is strong. I slide into the booth across from her. What about the financing? You're looking at about $15,000 down with conventional financing. Your credit score is excellent. Income is steady. The bank shouldn't give you any trouble. $15,000. It's most of my savings, but I've been living like a monk for 2 years, squirreling away every extra dollar. While Wyatt was buying rounds at bars and taking weekend trips to Vegas, I was eating ramen and shopping at thrift stores. There's one problem, Mila continues. The seller is motivated, but there's competition. Another buyer put in an offer yesterday. How much competition are we talking about? Real estate agent named Harmony Lane. Ring any bells? My stomach drops. Yeah, she's my brother's ex-girlfriend. Mila raises an eyebrow. Awkward. Think she knows you're interested in the property? No way. We haven't spoken in over a year, and she has no idea I'm looking at real estate. I hope. Harmony and Wyatt dated for 6 months last year before she dumped him for being financially irresponsible. Smart woman. What's her offer? Same as yours. Asking price, conventional financing. It's going to come down to who the seller likes better. Then I need to meet with them tomorrow. Summer. Mila closes her laptop and leans forward. Are you sure about this? I mean, really sure. Because once you start down this path, there's no going back to being just the admin who keeps her head down. I'm tired of keeping my head down. I'm tired of watching everyone else build their dreams while I file their paperwork. Even if it means going behind your family's back. I think about dinner last night, about Mom patting my hand like I'm a child, about Dad dismissing my questions like they don't matter. Especially then. The next morning I take a sick day and drive to Maple Street. The duplex is everything Mila described. Solid brick construction, good neighbourhood, needs some cosmetic work, but nothing major. The seller, an elderly woman named Mrs. Rodriguez, meets me at the property. You seem very young to be buying rental property, she says, as we walk through the first unit. I've been saving for this for a long time. I work in property management, I lie smoothly. I understand what it takes to maintain a building like this. She nods approvingly. The other buyer, she seemed more interested in flipping it. Kept talking about granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. But this is a good neighbourhood, working families. They don't need fancy fixtures, they need reliable landlords. That's exactly what I want to be, a landlord who cares about the community. 2 hours later, Mrs. Rodriguez accepts my offer. I'm sitting in my car afterward, hands shaking as I call Mila with the news, when I see a familiar figure walking up to the duplex. Harmony Lane, blonde hair perfectly styled, designer handbag, looking like she stepped out of a real estate magazine. She stops when she sees Mrs. Rodriguez putting a sold sign in the yard. Even from across the street I can see her face change as she realizes she's lost the deal. Then she turns and looks directly at my car. Our eyes meet through the windshield. For a moment, neither of us moves. Then Harmony pulls out her phone and starts typing, her gaze never leaving my face. I start my engine and drive away, but I can feel her watching me in my rearview mirror. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Interesting seeing you on Maple Street today, Summer. Didn't know you were in the market for investment properties. I delete the message without responding, but my hands are still shaking. The game has officially begun. 3 weeks later, I'm standing in the kitchen of my duplex watching a contractor named Rick tear out the old cabinets when my phone rings. "Summer, honey, can you come over?" Mum's voice sounds strained. "We need to talk." "Is everything okay? Can you come over, please?" I find my parents sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers between them. Dad's jaw is clenched, Mom's eyes are red. Classic signs of Wyatt drama. "What's wrong now?" I ask, sliding into my old chair. "The development project hit some snags," Dad says carefully. "Permitting issues, environmental surveys, the costs are higher than expected." "How much higher?" Mom and Dad exchange a look. "Another 100,000, Mom whispers. "Jesus Christ!" The words slip out before I can stop them. "You've already mortgaged the house for 200,000. Where are you going to get another 100? "That's what we wanted to discuss with you," Dad says. "You've always been so good with money, so responsible." "No." I stand up so fast my chair scrapes against the floor. "Absolutely not. We're not asking you to give us the money," Mom says quickly. "Just maybe co-sign on a loan. Your credit is excellent, and when Wyatt's project fails, I'll be on the hook for the payments." "It's not going to fail," Dad snaps. "Your brother knows what he's doing." Like he knew what he was doing with the food truck, or the app, or Those were different, Mom interrupts. "This is real estate. It's solid." I laugh, but there's no humour in it. Real estate is only solid if you know what you're doing. Has Wyatt ever successfully flipped a property? Has he ever managed a construction project? Has he ever done anything in real estate besides watch HGTV? "He's learning," Dad says. "Everyone has to start somewhere. Most people start with their own money, not their parents' house." The front door slams and Wyatt walks in, looking like he hasn't slept in days. His usually perfect hair is dishevelled, his shirt wrinkled. "Hey, family meeting without me?" He tries for his usual charming smile, but it falls flat. "We were just explaining the situation to Summer," Mom says gently. "Right, the money thing." Wyatt drops into a chair. "Look, Summer, I know this seems scary, but I've got everything under control. The permits are just taking longer than expected, and—" "Wyatt!" I sit back down, keeping my voice level. "What exactly do you know about construction, about zoning laws, about environmental impact studies?" "I've got people for that stuff. Contractors, lawyers, people who are billing you by the hour while you figure it out." His face flushes. "I'm not an idiot, Summer. I've done my research." "Have you? Because last week Deborah mentioned she saw you at 3 different properties in one day, looking confused and asking basic questions." Mum frowns. "Deborah said that? Shit, I shouldn't have mentioned the neighbour's gossip. Deborah Gill has lived next door for 20 years and sees everything that happens on our street, including, apparently, my own recent activities. She mentioned seeing Summer around some questionable neighbourhoods too," Wyatt says, his eyes narrowing. "What's that about, sis?" My heart pounds, but I keep my expression neutral. "I've been looking at apartments. My lease is up soon." "In the warehouse district?" Wyatt presses. "That's where Deborah saw you, not exactly residential." "Mixed-use development," I say smoothly. "Lofts are popular now." Dad waves his hand dismissively. "Can we focus on the actual problem here? We need to make a decision about the loan." "The decision is no," I say firmly. "I'm not co-signing anything." "Summer, please," Mom's voice breaks. "We're family. We help each other." "When have you ever helped me? When I wanted to go back to school for my MBA, you said it was too risky. When I mentioned starting my own business, you said I should stick with what I know. But Wyatt wants to play real estate mogul with your retirement money, and suddenly risk is fine?" "That's not fair," Wyatt says. "Isn't it? Name one time Mom and Dad supported my ambitions the way they support yours." Silence falls over the kitchen. Mum fidgets with her wedding ring. Dad stares at the table. Wyatt looks everywhere except at me. I thought so, I say, standing again. I'm not signing anything. Figure out another way. I'm almost to the door when Wyatt calls out, "You know what, Summer? Maybe Harmony was right about you." I freeze. What's that supposed to mean? She called me yesterday, said she ran into you at some property showing, said you seemed different, secretive. My mouth goes dry. Harmony's just stirring up trouble. She's still bitter about your breakup. Is she? Because she also said she's been tracking some mysterious buyer who's been snatching up properties all over the city, someone using an LLC to hide their identity. The room spins slightly. So it's interesting timing, don't you think? Right when our family's having money problems, someone's out there building a real estate empire in secret. I force a laugh. You think I'm some secret property mogul? Look at me, Wyatt. I'm an admin assistant who drives a 10-year-old Honda. But his eyes don't leave my face, and I can see the wheels turning. Wyatt might be reckless with money, but he's not stupid. And Harmony definitely isn't. I should go, I say. Good luck with your permits. I walk out before anyone can respond, but I can feel their eyes on my back. And for the first time since I started this whole thing, I wonder if I'm in over my head. The call comes at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Summer, you need to get over here. Now!" Mom's voice is shaking. I throw on clothes and drive to their house, where I find Dad pacing the living room while Mom sits on the couch, clutching a tissue. Wyatt is nowhere to be seen. "What happened?" "Lawsuits," Dad says without stopping his pacing. 3 of them. Buyers from Wyatt's development claiming fraud, breach of contract, failure to deliver promised amenities. "Where is he?" "Holed up in his apartment, not answering his phone," Mom says through tears. "The lawyers are saying we could lose everything, the house, our savings, everything." I sit down heavily. "How bad is it?" Dad finally stops pacing and looks at me. "Bad. The buyers put down deposits based on promises Wyatt made. Luxury finishes, completion dates, community amenities. None of it was in the actual contracts, but he told them verbally. And now they want their money back. Plus damages, plus legal fees." Dad's voice cracks. "We're looking at $500,000 in potential liability." My phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. "Heard about your brother's legal troubles. Maybe we should talk." H. Harmony. Of course she'd know about the lawsuits before the ink was dry on the court filings. "I need some air," I say, stepping onto the back porch. I call the number immediately. "Summer." Harmony's voice is smooth, professional. "I was wondering when you'd call. What do you want?" "To help, actually. I know this must be devastating for your family." "Cut the crap, Harmony. You dumped Wyatt because he was financially irresponsible. You're not calling out of concern." She laughs. "Fair enough. I'm calling because I have a proposition. I know you've been buying properties. Don't bother denying it. I've done my homework." My stomach drops. I don't know what you're talking about. "Riverside Investments LLC, registered 6 months ago. 3 properties purchased in the last 2 months. All cash deals, all in up-and-coming neighbourhoods. Very impressive for an admin assistant. You're fishing." "Am I?" "Because I also know you took a sick day the morning you outbid me on the Maple Street duplex. And I know you've been meeting regularly with Myla Blake, who happens to be very good at setting up investment vehicles for her clients." I close my eyes. She's done her homework all right. "What do you want, Harmony?" "Partnership. You clearly have capital and good instincts. I have experience and connections. Together, we could build something significant. And if I say no, then I might have to share my research with certain interested parties. Your family, for instance. I imagine they'd be very curious to know where you got the money for your little empire while they're facing bankruptcy." The threat hangs in the air between us. I can hear Mom crying through the porch door. "I'll think about it," I say finally. "Don't think too long. Your brother's problems are just getting started." She hangs up and I stare at my phone, hands shaking. Back inside, Mom has stopped crying but looks defeated. Summer, honey, I know we've never asked much of you, but... You're going to ask me for money? Dad nods grimly. We don't have anywhere else to turn. If we can settle these lawsuits quickly, maybe we can salvage something. How much? 200,000 to start. The number hits me like a physical blow. It's almost exactly what I have liquid between my savings and the equity in my properties. I don't have that kind of money, I lie. But maybe you could get a loan. Use your good credit. Mum's voice is desperate. We'll pay you back as soon as we can sell the house. Before I can answer, the front door bursts open. Wyatt stumbles in, looking like he hasn't slept or showered in days. They're trying to destroy me, he says wildly. These people knew what they were getting into. Real estate development has risks. Everyone knows that. Wyatt, Dad says carefully, you promised them things that weren't in the contracts. I was being optimistic. That's not fraud, that's salesmanship. It's fraud if you knew you couldn't deliver, I say. He whirls on me. Oh, now you're a legal expert too, just like you're suddenly a real estate expert. What's that supposed to mean? I've been thinking about what Harmony said, about the mysterious buyer, about your sudden interest in apartment hunting in commercial districts. His eyes are bloodshot but sharp. Where did you really get the money for these properties, Summer? The room goes silent. Mom and Dad look confused, but I can see the pieces clicking together in their minds. I don't know what you're talking about, I say, but my voice sounds hollow even to me. Bullshit. Wyatt steps closer. You've been playing some kind of long game, haven't you? Building your little empire while the rest of us struggle? That's enough, Dad says, but he's looking at me with new suspicion. My phone buzzes again. Another text from Harmony. Tick-tock, Summer. Your family's about to lose everything, and I'm the only one who can help you save them. But my offer expires at midnight. I look around the room at my family, Mom's tear-stained face, Dad's confusion, Wyatt's desperate anger, and realise that everything is about to come crashing down. The only question is whether I'll be standing in the rubble with them or watching from a safe distance. 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in my car outside the courthouse when Mila calls. It's official, she says without preamble. The house goes to auction next Friday. I watch Dad walk down the courthouse steps, shoulders slumped, looking like he's aged 10 years in the past month. Mum follows behind him, clutching his arm for support. How much do they owe? $430,000, including legal fees and penalties. The minimum bid will be $350,000. I do the math in my head. Between my savings, the equity in my properties, and a hard money loan Mila helped me secure, I can swing it. Barely. Set up the LLC, I tell her. Make sure there's no way to trace it back to me. Summer, are you absolutely sure about this? Once you buy that house, there's no going back. Your family will never forgive you. I watch my parents get into their car, Dad's hands shaking as he tries to start the engine. They've never forgiven me for existing. At least this way I'll have something to show for it. That evening, I'm at my duplex supervising the installation of new flooring when my contractor, Rick, pulls me aside. We need to talk, he says, glancing around nervously. What's wrong? I know who you are. My blood runs cold. Excuse me. Summer Williams. Your brother's the one who's been all over the news with those lawsuits, and I know you're the one behind Riverside Investments. I keep my face neutral. I don't know what you're talking about. Rick laughs, but there's no humour in it. Come on. You think I'm stupid? I've been doing work for your LLC for months. Same payment method, same attention to detail, same way of checking every corner twice. Plus, you slip up sometimes. Call properties mine instead of the client's. What do you want? 50,000 cash, or I make some phone calls? The demand hits me like a punch to the gut. You're blackmailing me. I'm asking for a finder's fee for keeping your secret safe. I don't have 50,000 lying around. Sure you do. You're about to buy a $400,000 house, aren't you? My phone starts ringing. Mom's name on the screen. I have to take this, I tell Rick, stepping away. Summer, Mum's voice is barely a whisper. Can you come over, please? I find them in the living room, surrounded by boxes. They're packing. Where are you going? Your Aunt Linda's in Phoenix, Mum says, just until we figure things out. Dad looks up from a box of photo albums. We can't afford to stay here anymore, even as renters. The legal fees, the settlements, we're broke, Summer. Completely broke. What about Wyatt? He's already gone, Mum says bitterly. Left yesterday. Said he needed to clear his head and explore new opportunities. He abandoned you? Dad's jaw tightens. He said the stress was affecting his ability to think clearly, that he'd be more help to us if he could focus on his next venture without distractions. I stare at them, these people who sacrificed everything for their golden boy, now abandoned and packing their lives into cardboard boxes. I'm sorry, I say, and for the first time in weeks, I mean it. Mum looks up with tears in her eyes. We know we haven't always been fair to you, honey. We know we put too much pressure on you to be the responsible one while we enabled Wyatt. You were always our safety net, Dad adds quietly, and we took that for granted. The irony is crushing. Here they are, finally acknowledging what I've always known, just as I'm about to betray them in the most spectacular way possible. There's something else, Mum says. The auction is Friday, and we were hoping you could be there. For moral support. It's going to be hard, watching strangers bid on our home. Of course, I hear myself saying. I'll be there. After I leave, I sit in my car for 20 minutes, staring at their house. The house where I grew up feeling invisible. The house they mortgaged for Wyatt's dreams. The house I'm about to buy out from under them. My phone buzzes. A text from Harmony. Heard about the auction. Interesting timing for your family's financial troubles. Still interested in that partnership? I delete the message without responding, but another one comes immediately. I'll be at the auction Friday. Should be quite a show. Then another. By the way, I had lunch with Deborah today. Your neighbour has some fascinating theories about your recent activities. My hands are shaking as I call Mila. We have a problem, I tell her. Multiple problems. Talk to me. Rick is blackmailing me. Harmony knows about the LLC and is threatening to expose me. And Deborah has been watching me and talking to people. Jesus, Summer, how did this get so complicated? I don't know, but I need you to accelerate the timeline. Can we be ready for the auction? Technically, yes. But Summer, maybe this is a sign. Maybe you should walk away before... No. The word comes out harder than I intended. I've come too far to back down now. They want to see what the responsible daughter is capable of. Fine. They're about to find out. But even as I say it, I can hear the doubt in my own voice. And for the first time since this all started, I wonder if revenge is worth the price I'm about to pay. Friday morning arrives grey and drizzling. I stand across the street from my childhood home, watching strangers gather on the front lawn like vultures circling roadkill. Dwayne Duncan, the auctioneer, sets up his podium under a pop-up tent. He's been handling estate sales and foreclosures in our town for 20 years. When he sees me, he gives a sympathetic nod. Sorry about your family's situation, Summer, he says quietly. This is never easy. Just business, right? He studies my face for a moment. Sometimes, but it doesn't have to be cruel. Mom and Dad arrive in their old sedan, parking down the street like they're afraid to get too close. They look smaller somehow, diminished. Mum clutches Dad's arm as they approach the crowd. Summer! Mum hurries over and hugs me tightly. Thank you for being here. I know this is hard for you too. Where's Wyatt? Dad's face darkens. Still clearing his head, apparently. Haven't heard from him in 3 days. A black BMW pulls up, and Harmony steps out wearing a crisp business suit and designer heels. She surveys the crowd like a general reviewing troops. Then her eyes find mine. She smiles and walks over. Summer, how are you holding up? Her voice drips with fake sympathy. Fine, thanks. And Mr. and Mrs. Williams. She turns to my parents with practiced concern. I'm so sorry about all this. Wyatt was always such a dreamer. Sometimes dreams and reality don't align. Mum's face tightens. Harmony. I hope there are no hard feelings about the breakup. I tried to warn him about taking on too much debt, but... She shrugs elegantly. You warned him? Dad's voice is sharp. Oh, yes, many times. In fact, I even offered to help finance his project properly, with realistic timelines and budgets. But he said he had everything under control. I stare at her. You offered to finance Wyatt's project? A small investment, $50,000 with proper oversight. But he turned me down, said he didn't need a babysitter. Harmony's smile turns predatory. Pride comes before the fall, as they say. The pieces click into place. Wyatt had mentioned getting seed money from an investor, but he'd been vague about the details. Now I understand why. Ladies and gentlemen, Dwayne's voice booms across the lawn. We'll be starting in 5 minutes. Please review your financing paperwork and be prepared to show proof of funds. The crowd shifts, and I see several serious-looking investors checking their phones and shuffling papers. A young couple holds hands near the back, probably first-time home buyers hoping for a deal. An older man in an expensive suit stands near the front, clearly a professional flipper. Quite a turnout, Harmony says, still watching me. Should be interesting to see who ends up with it. My phone buzzes. A text from Mila. Representative is in position. LLC paperwork is clean. You sure about this? I type back. Yes. Summer? Mum touches my arm. Are you okay? You look pale. I'm fine. Just... This is harder than I expected. We'll get through this, Dad says, but his voice lacks conviction. We'll rebuild somehow. Dwayne taps his microphone. All right, folks, let's get started. This is a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial on a corner lot, built in 1987. Minimum bid is $350,000. Do I hear 350? Several hands go up immediately. The professional flipper, the young couple, 2 other investors I don't recognize. 350 now, 400 now, 450. The bidding moves quickly. The young couple drops out at 400. One of the investors falls away at 475. 500,000! The professional flipper's voice cuts through the crowd. 525! Harmony raises her paddle calmly. My heart pounds. She's actually bidding. This wasn't part of any plan. 550! The flipper counters. 600! Harmony doesn't hesitate. The flipper shakes his head and steps back. The crowd murmurs. 600 is well above market value for this neighbourhood. 600,000 going once. Dwayne scans the crowd. This is it. My moment. I catch the eye of Mila's representative, a sharp-dressed woman named Janet, who's been standing quietly near the side of the house. Janet raises her paddle. 650. Harmony's head snaps around, searching for the bidder. When she spots Janet, her eyes narrow. 700, Harmony calls out, her voice tight. 750, Janet responds immediately. Mom grabs my arm. Who is that woman? Why is she bidding so high? I don't know, I lie. 800. Harmony's composure is cracking. She's bidding with emotion now, not strategy. 850, Janet says calmly. The crowd is buzzing. This is way beyond what anyone expected. Harmony pulls out her phone, probably checking her financing limits. 900,000! Harmony's voice is strained. Janet looks at me across the crowd. I give the slightest nod. $1 million, Janet announces. The crowd goes silent. Even Dwayne looks stunned. Harmony stares at Janet, then slowly turns to scan the crowd again. Her eyes find mine, and I see the exact moment she realizes what's happening. 1 million, going once, going twice. Dwayne's voice seems to come from far away. Harmony opens her mouth, then closes it. She knows she's beaten. Sold! To bidder number 7 for $1 million. The crowd erupts in chatter. Mom and Dad look shell-shocked. They just watched their house sell for nearly 3 times what they owed. On it. Harmony pushes through the crowd toward me, her face a mask of fury and admiration. "Brilliant," she says when she reaches me. "Absolutely brilliant. Though I have to ask, how does an admin assistant afford $1 million house?" Before I can answer, Janet approaches with a folder in her hands. "Miss Williams," she says to me, "I need you to sign the final paperwork." The words hang in the air like a bomb about to explode. Mom and Dad turn to stare at me, confusion giving way to shock. "Summer?" Mom's voice is barely a whisper. What is she talking about? I look at my parents, at Harmony's triumphant smile, at the crowd of strangers who just witnessed my family's destruction and my secret revealed. There's no going back now. The silence stretches like a rubber band about to snap. Mom and Dad stare at me, their faces cycling through confusion, disbelief, and something that might be horror. "Summer," Dad's voice cracks. "What is she talking about?" I take the folder from Janet with steady hands, though my heart is hammering against my ribs. "Thank you. I'll review these and get them back to you by Monday." "Of course, Ms. Williams. Congratulations on your purchase." Janet walks away, leaving me standing in the centre of a circle that feels like a firing squad. The crowd is dispersing, but several people linger, sensing drama. "Summer!" Mom's voice is barely audible. "Please tell me this is some kind of mistake." I look at my parents, really look at them. Dad's face is grey, his hands shaking slightly. Mom looks like she might collapse. Behind them I can see Dwayne packing up his equipment, pointedly not looking in our direction. "It's not a mistake," I say quietly. "You bought our house?" Dad's words come out strangled. "You bought our house at auction?" "Yes." "How?" Mum whispers. "How do you have $1 million?" Harmony steps closer, her phone out, probably recording. "Oh, this is rich. Tell them, Summer. Tell them about Riverside Investments LLC. Tell them about the property empire you've been building while they were losing everything." "Shut up, Harmony," I snap. "Property empire?" Dad looks like I've slapped him. "What property empire?" The words stick in my throat. Now that the moment is here, I can't find a way to explain that doesn't sound monstrous. "I've been buying real estate," I say finally, "for the past year." "With what money?" Mum's voice is rising. "You're an administrative assistant." "With the money I saved while you were funding Wyatt's disasters. With the money I earned while you were mortgaging your future for his dreams." Dad takes a step back like I've physically pushed him. "You've been hiding money from us while we were struggling." "I wasn't hiding it from you. I was protecting it from you." "Protecting it?" Mom's voice breaks. "We're your family." "Are we?" The words explode out of me, because for 31 years I've felt more like an employee than a daughter, the reliable one, the backup plan, the safety net you could count on while you poured everything into Wyatt. "That's not true," Dad says, but his voice lacks conviction. "Isn't it? When I wanted to go back to school, you said it was too risky. When I mentioned starting a business, you said I should stick with what I know. But Wyatt wants to play developer with your retirement money, and suddenly risk is an adventure." A small crowd has gathered again, drawn by our raised voices. I can see phones coming out, people recording. This is going to be all over social media within the hour. "We should go somewhere private," I say. "No." Mom's voice is steel. "You want to humiliate us in public? Fine. Let's finish this here. How much, Summer? How much money have you been hiding while we lost everything?" I could lie. I could minimize it, but I'm done with lies. "Including this house? About $2 million in assets." Mom staggers like I've hit her. Dad catches her arm. $2 million, he repeats numbly. "You had $2 million and you watched us lose our home. You chose to lose your home. You chose to mortgage it for Wyatt's fantasy. I tried to warn you, but you wouldn't listen." "So you decided to buy it yourself?" Harmony interjects, clearly enjoying the show. "At auction, in front of them." "I decided to save it," I say, turning to face my parents. Do you understand what just happened here? You owed $400,000. I just paid $1 million. That's $600,000 that goes directly to you, free and clear. Dad blinks. What? The surplus from the auction. It's yours. You're not broke anymore. You can buy another house, start over, do whatever you want. But this house, our house, is mine now. The words taste like ashes, and you can stay in it as tenants. I'll charge you fair market rent, nothing more. Mum starts crying, not the gentle tears from earlier, but harsh, broken sobs. You planned this, she says between gasps. You planned all of this. While we were suffering, you were planning to take our home. I planned to save it, by stealing it, by buying it at a legal auction with money I earned, money you should have used to help your family. The accusation hangs in the air like smoke. Around us, the crowd has grown larger. I can see Deborah from next door, her face a mask of scandalized delight. Help my family do what? I ask quietly. Enable Wyatt's next disaster? Fund another one of his brilliant ideas? Watch you mortgage your future again and again because you can't say no to your golden boy? He's your brother, Dad says, and I'm your daughter, but you've never treated me like one. I turn to walk away, but Mum's voice stops me. Summer, please, don't do this. Don't destroy our family over money. I turn back to face them one last time. I didn't destroy this family, Mom. I just stopped pretending it was something it never was. I walked to my car, leaving them standing in the wreckage of their old life and the birth of my new one. Behind me, I can hear Mom crying and Harmony's voice, probably offering comfort that comes with strings attached. As I drive away, I catch a glimpse of them in my rearview mirror, small, broken figures standing in front of the house that's no longer theirs. I should feel triumphant. I should feel vindicated. Instead, I just feel empty. The house feels different when I walk through it alone, bigger somehow, but also hollow. The hardwood floors echo under my feet as I move through rooms that once felt like home and now feel like a museum of someone else's life. I'm standing in the kitchen looking at the table where we had that last family dinner when the doorbell rings. It's Wyatt. He looks terrible, unshaven, hollow-eyed, wearing the same clothes he had on 3 days ago. But there's something different in his posture. The cocky confidence is gone, replaced by something I've never seen in him before. Genuine humility. Can I come in? I step aside without a word. He walks into the living room and stops, looking around like he's seeing it for the first time. It looks exactly the same, he says quietly. I haven't changed anything yet. Yet, he turns to face me. So you're really going to live here, in our childhood home? I don't know. Maybe. I haven't decided. We stand there in awkward silence. Finally, Wyatt sits down heavily on the couch. I heard what happened at the auction. Mom called me, crying so hard I could barely understand her. Where were you, Wyatt? Your parents were losing their home and you were nowhere to be found. I was in Vegas. His voice is flat. Trying to win enough money to save the house. Stupid, right? Even at the end, I thought I could fix everything with one big score. How much did you lose? Everything. The last $5,000 I had to my name. He laughs bitterly. I'm broke, Summer. Completely broke. Sleeping on a friend's couch, borrowing money for gas. I sit down across from him. Good. He looks up, startled. I'm serious. Good. Maybe now you'll stop chasing fantasies and figure out how to actually work for something. Jesus, Summer, I know I screwed up, but do you really know? Because this isn't just about one failed business, Wyatt. This is about 30 years of you getting everything handed to you while I got nothing. This is about Mom and Dad sacrificing their retirement for your dreams while treating mine like hobbies. You're right. The words come out so quietly I almost miss them. What? You're right about all of it. He looks up at me and, for the first time in our lives, I see him clearly. Not the golden boy, not the charming dreamer, just a broken man facing the truth. I've been selfish my whole life. I took everything they gave me and convinced myself I deserved it. And now I'm sitting in the house my sister bought because I destroyed our parents' lives. He wipes his eyes with the back of his hand. I don't even know how to apologize for that. The front door opens and Mom and Dad walk in. They stop when they see Wyatt, and for a moment nobody moves. "We came to get some things," Mom says stiffly. "We're staying at a hotel until we find an apartment." "You don't have to do that," I say. "I meant what I said about renting to you. We can't live in our own house as tenants," Dad replies. "It's too humiliating," I finish. "Complicated." Wyatt stands up. "Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." Mom looks at him with tired eyes. "Sorry doesn't fix anything, Wyatt." "I know, but I want to try. I want to get a real job, pay you back somehow." "With what?" Dad's voice is sharp. "You don't have any skills except talking people into bad investments." "Then I'll learn some. I'll do whatever it takes." I watch this exchange, feeling like I'm seeing my family clearly for the first time. Mum and Dad finally holding Wyatt accountable. Wyatt finally accepting responsibility. And me, the architect of this reckoning, standing in the ruins of everything I thought I wanted. "There's something else," I say. "The surplus money from the auction, $600,000. It's yours. I've already had my lawyer start the paperwork." Dad stares at me. "You're giving us the money. It was always yours. I just made sure you got market value instead of losing everything to the bank. But the house is mine. That doesn't change. But the money is yours to start over with." Mom sits down suddenly like her legs won't hold her anymore. "I don't understand you, Summer. You destroy us and save us at the same time." "I didn't destroy you. I just stopped enabling the destruction." Myla appears in the doorway. "Sorry to interrupt. Summer, we need to discuss the Rick situation." "What Rick situation?" Wyatt asks. "My contractor was blackmailing me, threatening to expose my real estate business unless I paid him $50,000. "Was?" Dad notices the past tense. Myla smiles grimly. "Turns out Rick has been skimming materials from job sites and selling them. I had a friend at the DA's office look into it. He's got bigger problems than blackmail now." "You had him arrested?" Mom looks shocked. "I had him investigated. The arrest was his own doing." Wyatt shakes his head. "You really did think of everything, didn't you?" "I had to. Nobody else was going to protect me." The room falls quiet again. Finally, Dad speaks. "What happens now?" I look around at my family, broken, scattered, but maybe finally honest with each other. "Now you take the money and start over, build something real this time, something sustainable, and Wyatt gets a job that doesn't involve other people's money." "And you?" Mum asks. "I keep building, but I do it in the open this time. No more secrets, no more hiding. Will you—" Mum's voice breaks slightly. "Will you still be our daughter?" The question hangs in the air. I could say no. I could cut them off completely, enjoy my victory in solitude. But looking at them now, really seeing them, flaws and all, I realise that would be just another kind of prison. "I'll always be your daughter," I say finally, "but I won't be your safety net anymore, and I won't be invisible." Mom starts crying again, but these tears are different, cleaner somehow. "We see you now," she whispers. "We finally see you." I nod, not trusting my voice. Outside the sun is setting, casting long shadows through the windows of the house that's mine now. Not the way I imagined it as a child, but mine nonetheless. It's not the ending I planned. It's messier, more complicated, with loose threads and unresolved hurt. But it's real. And for the first time in my life, that feels like enough. "So," Wyatt says, breaking the silence, "anyone know if McDonald's is hiring?" Despite everything, I laugh. And after a moment, so do Mom and Dad. It's a start.
The envelope was addressed to my sister, but it was sitting in my mailbox like a ticking bomb. My name is Ramona, and I should have minded my own business. Should have walked that letter right over to Fiona's pristine doorstep and handed it over with a smile. But when you're surviving on ramen noodles and your 5-year-old asks why he can't have the cereal with the toy inside, you tend to notice things. Like how your sister drives a brand new BMW while lecturing you about financial responsibility. Mommy, can we get the good mac and cheese today? Adrian tugged at my work uniform as we stood in the grocery store, staring at the wall of orange boxes. The good stuff cost $2 more. $2 that meant choosing between his lunch money and keeping the lights on. Not today, baby, but look. I grabbed the generic box, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. This one has a dinosaur on it. That's way cooler, right? He nodded, but I caught the disappointment flickering across his face. 5 years old, and he was already learning to swallow his wants. The guilt twisted in my stomach like a knife. My phone buzzed. Fiona. Hey sis, family dinner Sunday. Mom's making her famous roast. You and Adrian better be there. No excuses this time. I stared at the text, jaw clenching. Her famous roast that I'd helped pay for somehow. There was always a catch with these family dinners. Always some way I'd leave and feeling smaller than when I arrived. Sunday came like a death sentence. I dressed Adrian in his one good shirt and drove my rattling Honda to my parents' house, the same house where Fiona now lived rent-free while I scraped together $800 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment that smelled like cigarettes and broken dreams. Ramona! Mom's voice carried that particular pitch reserved for wayward children and disappointing investments. You're late. Traffic, I lied, unwrapping the store-bought pie I'd grabbed from the discount rack. Around the table sat the usual suspects, Mom, Dad, Fiona, and a few cousins who'd managed to avoid whatever curse had landed on my head. Fiona swept into the dining room, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. New jewelry caught the light as she moved, delicate gold pieces that whispered expensive in a way my Target earrings never could. Oh, Ramona. She pulled me into one of those hugs that felt more like a performance. You look tired. Are you sleeping enough? Hard to sleep when you work 2 jobs, I said, settling Adrian into his chair. Still at the diner? Dad's voice carried that familiar edge of disappointment. And the cleaning service? Someone has to pay the bills. Well, if Cruz wasn't such a deadbeat, Fiona started. Don't. The word came out sharper than I intended. Just don't. An uncomfortable silence settled over the table. Adrian looked between the adults, sensing the tension but not understanding it. My ex-husband had become the family's favorite villain, the convenient explanation for why I struggled while everyone else seemed to thrive. I'm just saying, Fiona continued, her voice dripping with practiced sympathy, it's not fair that you have to carry this burden alone. That man should be supporting his son. The others nodded in agreement. Poor Ramona, abandoned by her worthless husband. Poor Ramona, too proud to ask for help. Poor Ramona, making everyone uncomfortable with her obvious poverty. After dinner, Fiona cornered me in the kitchen while I helped with dishes. Here, she pressed an envelope into my hands. It's not much, but maybe it'll help with groceries this week. I opened it. $200. Enough to buy the good mac and cheese for a month, maybe catch up on the electric bill. But the way she watched me, like she was feeding a stray cat, made my skin crawl. Thank you, I managed. We're family, she said, but something in her tone felt off. Rehearsed. We take care of each other. That night, I tucked Adrian into bed and sat in my kitchen, staring at the money. Family help always came with invisible strings attached, little reminders of my place in the hierarchy. But what choice did I have? I was sorting through mail the next morning when I found it, the envelope addressed to Fiona Richards, delivered to my box by mistake. The return address made my blood run cold. County Court Services, Child Support Division. My hands shook as I held it. This had to be a mistake. Cruz hadn't paid child support in 5 years. The court had given up trying to collect from him long ago. But there it was, in black and white official lettering. And suddenly, all those expensive clothes and mysterious generosity started making a different kind of sense. I stared at that envelope for 3 hours before I opened it. Adrian was at kindergarten, and I'd called in sick to both jobs, something I never did because I couldn't afford to lose the pay. But this envelope felt like it might contain a bomb, and I needed to be alone when it exploded. My hands trembled as I slid my finger under the seal. The letterhead was official, intimidating. Notice of payment processing. Case 447291RS. The words swam in front of my eyes at first. Then they snapped into focus with brutal clarity. Payment received, $847. Total payments processed, $50, not $20 over 60 months. Account holder, Fiona Richards. Routing number, 4472-8891-2234. I read it again, then again. The numbers didn't change. $50,000, 5 years of payments, $847 every single month, like clockwork. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up my bank statements, scrolling back through months of overdraft fees and declined transactions. Nothing. Not a single deposit from child support. Not ever. My phone was in my hand before I realized I was dialing. County Child Support Services, this is Janet. Hi, I need to check on payments for case number 47291S. My voice sounded strange, distant. I'll need to verify your identity first. Name? Ramona Jordan. I'm the custodial parent. Keys clicked in the background. I show regular payments being processed to the designated account. Is there a problem with the deposits? What account? What's the account number on file? More clicking. I can't give you the full number for security reasons, but it ends in 20234. The account holder is listed as Fiona Richards. Is this a joint account? The phone slipped from my numb fingers and clattered onto the kitchen table. Fiona, my sister, the same sister who'd been handing me pity money while stealing my son's support payments. I called the number back. I need to speak to a supervisor. Someone has been stealing my child support payments. 20 minutes later, I had the full story. Cruz had been paying faithfully since our divorce was finalized, every month without fail. The payments were being deposited into an account that Fiona had somehow gotten authorized to receive them. How was that even possible? I asked the supervisor. The paperwork shows a power of attorney designation. It looks like it was filed by your family's attorney, Tegan Marshall. The custodial parent, that's you, would have had to sign off on this arrangement. I never signed anything like that. Ma'am, I'm looking at your signature right here. My signature. On documents I'd never seen. I hung up and immediately called Cruz. We hadn't spoken in 2 years, not since our last screaming match about money and responsibility and all the ways we'd failed each other. Ramona, his voice was cautious, surprised. Have you been paying child support? Silence stretched between us. Then, of course I have. Every month since the divorce. Why would you? I never got it. Not a single payment. That's impossible. It comes right out of my paycheck. I have the stubs. Send them to me. All of them. Right now. Ramona, what's going on? Just send them. An hour later, my email chimed. 57 pay stubs, each showing a deduction for child support. $847 every single month. Money that should have kept us fed, housed, stable. Money that would have meant Adrian could have the good cereal, the name brand shoes, the security of knowing his mother wasn't drowning. I called Fiona. Hey sis, what's up? Her voice was so casual, so normal, like she wasn't a thief, like she hadn't been stealing from her own nephew. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Of course. What is it? Have you been receiving Adrian's child support payments? The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Fiona? Why would you ask that? Because I have documentation showing that Cruz has been paying and the money's been going to your account. That's ridiculous. Why would... I have the court documents, Fiona. I know. Her breathing changed. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. You don't understand the situation. Then explain it to me. Mom and Dad thought it would be better if the money was managed properly. You were so emotional after the divorce, making poor decisions. You stole from my son. We were protecting... I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. $50,000. While I'd worked myself to exhaustion, while Adrian had learned to accept disappointment as normal, while I'd swallowed my pride and accepted their charity, they'd been stealing from us. The envelope sat on my kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene, which I realized was exactly what it was. I took pictures of everything. The letter, the pay stubs, my empty bank statements. Then I Googled family law attorneys near me and started making calls. The first attorney I called wanted $5,000 up front. The second wanted $3,000. The third, Maria Santos, agreed to meet me for a consultation after I explained the situation. Bring everything, she said. Every document, every email, every text message. I spent the next 2 days gathering evidence like I was building a case for the FBI. Bank statements, pay stubs, court documents, screenshots of Fiona's social media showing off her expensive purchases. The paper trail painted a picture that made me sick. Maria's office was small but professional. She listened without interrupting as I laid out the whole story, spreading documents across her desk like puzzle pieces. This is fraud, she said finally. Clear-cut financial fraud and identity theft. But I need to understand how they got your signature on the power of attorney. I never signed one. Someone did, and it's notarized. She held up the document. Do you recognize this signature? I stared at it. It looked like mine, but something was off. Too perfect, maybe. Like someone had traced it. I need to talk to Tegan Marshall, I said. The family attorney? Be careful. If she's involved, she might try to cover her tracks. I called Tegan that afternoon, keeping my voice casual. Tegan, it's Ramona. I hope you don't mind me calling directly. Of course not, dear. What can I do for you? I'm trying to organize my financial records, and I'm missing some paperwork from the divorce. Could you send me copies of everything I signed? Certainly. I'll have my assistant pull the file. Actually, I'm particularly looking for the power of attorney document, the one about the child support payments. Silence. Then, power of attorney? Yes, the one that authorized Fiona to receive the payments on my behalf. Ramona, let me check the file and call you back. She hung up. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Ramona, I think there might be some confusion. I don't show any power of attorney in your file. But the court has one, with my signature and your notarization. Another long pause. I need to look into this. Can you come in tomorrow? I'll be there. That evening, Cruz called. I've been thinking about our conversation, he said. Something doesn't add up. When we got divorced, Fiona told me you didn't want to deal with me directly. She said you'd asked her to handle the support payments. She what? She called me about a month after the divorce was final. Said you were too upset to talk to me, but that you needed the money to go through her so she could help you manage it. She had me change the payment information. My grip tightened on the phone. I never asked her to do that. She said you were having trouble with bills, making poor decisions. She showed me some paperwork that looked official. What kind of paperwork? A letter from you asking her to help, and something that looked like a court document. Cruz, I never wrote any letter. I never asked for her help. Jesus, Ramona, what did she do? She stole from us for 5 years. The next morning, I sat in Tegan's office while she shuffled through files with increasing panic. I don't understand, she kept saying. This document, I don't remember notarizing this. But that's your stamp, your signature. Yes, but... She pulled out a ledger. I keep records of everything I notarize. This date isn't in my book. So someone forged your notarization? It appears so. Ramona, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Who had access to your stamp? Your office? Tegan's face went pale. Fiona helped me with filing sometimes. She had keys to the office. I need you to document this. Write down everything you just told me. Of course. And Ramona, I think you should call the police. I left Tegan's office with a signed statement and a growing sense of rage. Fiona hadn't just stolen money. She'd orchestrated an elaborate fraud, forging documents and manipulating everyone around her. My phone buzzed. A text from Fiona. We need to talk. Meet me at Mom and Dad's tonight. I stared at the message. She knew I was on to her. Instead of responding, I called Maria. I need to record a phone conversation. Is that legal? In this state, yes. As long as one party consents. That would be you. Good, because I think she's about to confess. I called Fiona back, hitting record on my phone app. Ramona, thank God. Look, I know you're upset, but you have to understand. Understand what? That you've been stealing from your nephew? It wasn't stealing. We were helping you. You were a mess after the divorce, making terrible decisions. Someone had to step in. By forging documents, by lying to Cruz, by letting me work 2 jobs while you lived off my son's money? You're being dramatic. We always made sure you had what you needed. $50,000, Fiona. You stole $50,000. We invested it. We were growing it for Adrian's future. Where is it now? Silence. Where's the money, Fiona? Some of it. We had expenses. The house needed repairs. And Mom's medical bills. You spent my son's money on house repairs? It's complicated, Ramona. You wouldn't understand. Try me. But she'd already hung up. I had it all on tape. The admission, the justification, the lies, everything I needed to destroy her. I needed to know who else was involved. Angela, my younger cousin, had always been the family observer. Quiet, watchful, but surprisingly perceptive. If anyone had noticed something off about Fiona's sudden wealth, it would be her. I found Angela at the coffee shop where she worked part-time while finishing her master's degree. She looked surprised to see me. Ramona, what are you doing here? I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. She glanced around the nearly empty shop, then poured herself a coffee and sat across from me. This sounds serious. Have you noticed anything strange about Fiona lately? Her spending, her lifestyle? Angela's eyes narrowed. Why are you asking? Just answer me, please. She stirred her coffee slowly, considering. She's been different, more flashy. Remember when she bought that BMW? She said it was a bonus from work, but I looked up her salary range online. Marketing coordinators don't make BMW money. What else? The vacation house in Cabo, the designer bags. She took Mom shopping last month and dropped $3,000 like it was nothing. Angela leaned forward. Ramona, what's going on? She's been stealing Adrian's child support payments for 5 years. Angela's cup clattered against the saucer. What? I showed her the documents, the recorded conversation, everything. She listened with growing horror. Oh my God, that's why you've been struggling so much. We all thought Cruz was a deadbeat. That's what she wanted everyone to think. But how did she... The paperwork? The legal stuff? Forged. She had access to Tegan's office, used her notary stamp. Angela sat back, processing. The family dinners, when she'd slip you money acting like she was being so generous. She was giving you back your own stolen money. Exactly. What are you going to do? I'm filing charges, but first, I need to know, Do Mom and Dad know? Angela's face told me everything before she spoke. They know something. Maybe not the details, but she pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. Look at this. She showed me a picture from last Christmas. Fiona handing our parents an envelope, their faces lighting up with surprise and gratitude. She gave them $10,000 for their anniversary trip to Europe. Said it was her Christmas bonus. Marketing coordinators don't get $10,000 bonuses either. No, they don't. And when I mentioned that to Mom, she got defensive. Said Fiona was doing well for herself and we shouldn't question family generosity. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Drop it, or you'll regret it. I showed Angela the message. Someone's scared, she said. Good. They should be. The next morning, I met with Maria to file the formal complaints. Fraud, identity theft, embezzlement. The charges were serious enough to put Fiona in prison. This will take time, Maria warned, and it's going to get ugly. Your family will close ranks. Let them. What about your son? This is going to be public. I thought about Adrian. Innocent and trusting, who still asked why Daddy didn't love him enough to help us. He deserves to know his father tried. He deserves to know someone fought for him. That afternoon, I picked Adrian up from school and took him for ice cream, the good kind with real chunks of cookie dough. He chattered about his day while I watched him, memorizing his smile before everything changed. Mommy, why are you sad? I'm not sad, baby. I'm just thinking. About what? About how much I love you and how I'm going to make sure you have everything you deserve. He nodded seriously, like he understood more than he should have to at 5 years old. My phone rang. Mom. Ramona, Fiona told me you've been asking questions about money. What's this about? Ask Fiona. She's upset. She says you're accusing her of terrible things. I'm not accusing her of anything. I'm stating facts. Honey, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Mom. Just theft. Don't be ridiculous. Fiona would never. $50,000, Mom. She stole $50,000 from your grandson. Silence. That's impossible. I have the documentation. Bank records, court papers, recorded confessions. It's all real. Ramona, you need to calm down. You're obviously confused. I'm filing charges tomorrow. You can't be serious. Watch me. I hung up and immediately called Cruz. I need you to get a lawyer, I told him. We're going to court, and I need you to testify about how Fiona manipulated you into changing the payment information. Already done. My attorney says we have a solid case for fraud and that I might be able to recover damages too. Good, because this is war now. That evening, as I tucked Adrian into bed, he asked, Mommy, are we going to be okay? Yes, baby. We're going to be better than okay. Promise? I promise. But as I turned off his light, I found another note slipped under my front door. Last warning. Back off or face the consequences. I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. They had no idea who they were threatening. The consequences were coming, all right. Just not for me. The family brunch invitation came 3 days later, handwritten on Mom's expensive stationery. Family gathering this Sunday. We need to discuss some concerns. Please come. Mom, I almost laughed. Concerns. Like I was the problem. I showed up with Adrian in tow, armed with a small recording device in my purse and a smile that could cut glass. The dining room buzzed with nervous energy. Mom, Dad, Fiona, Aunt Camila, and a few cousins I barely recognized anymore. Ramona, Mom's voice was too bright, too forced. We're so glad you came. Fiona sat at the far end of the table, her usual designer outfit replaced with something more subdued. She wouldn't meet my eyes. So, Dad cleared his throat, your mother tells me there's been some confusion about finances. No confusion, just theft. Aunt Camila gasped. Ramona, really? That's a serious accusation. It's a serious crime. Now, let's all calm down, Mom said, passing around mimosas like alcohol could solve fraud. I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. $50,000 isn't a misunderstanding. Fiona finally spoke, her voice small. I was trying to help. Help yourself, you mean? That's enough, Dad snapped. Fiona has been nothing but generous to this family. With my son's money. Alleged money, Aunt Camilla interjected. We only have your word that... I pulled out my phone and played the recording of Fiona's confession. Her voice filled the room. We invested it. We were growing it for Adrian's future. The silence was deafening. Where's the money now, Fiona? I asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. She stared at her plate. Some of it was used for family expenses. What kind of expenses? The house needed a new roof, Mom's medical bills from her surgery, Dad's car repairs. I turned to my parents. So you did know? Mom's face crumpled. We thought... Fiona said you had agreed to let her manage the money, that you were having trouble with finances. And you believed that? You believed I would struggle to feed my son while letting my sister manage thousands of dollars? You were so angry after the divorce, Dad said defensively. So emotional. We thought maybe it was better... Better for who? For you? So you could take European vacations and buy new cars with my son's money? It wasn't like that, Mom whispered. Then what was it like? Fiona suddenly stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. Fine. You want the truth? Yes, I took the money, but I was protecting Adrian from you. The room went dead silent. Protecting him from me? You were a mess, Ramona. Drinking too much, crying all the time, making terrible decisions. Someone had to think about Adrian's future. I worked 2 jobs to support him while you bought designer handbags. I invested most of it. Where? Show me the investment accounts. Fiona's face went pale. It's complicated. Show me the accounts, Fiona. There were some losses. The market... You spent it all, didn't you? She sank back into her chair. Not all of it. How much is left? Maybe 8,000. 8,000 out of 50. I felt the room spinning. You stole $42,000 from a 5-year-old child. I was going to pay it back. When? After you bought another vacation home? Aunt Camilla cleared her throat. Perhaps we can work out a payment plan. No. I stood up, Adrian's hand in mine. We're past payment plans. I've already filed charges. The room erupted. Mom started crying. Dad started shouting. Cousins started talking over each other. Through it all, Fiona sat frozen, staring at me with something that looked like hatred. You can't be serious, Dad said. She's family. Family doesn't steal from children. Think about what this will do to the family name, Mom pleaded. The scandal... Should have thought about that before you spent my son's college fund on roof repairs. I picked up Adrian, who had been quietly coloring through the chaos. Mommy, why is everyone yelling? He whispered. Because sometimes adults make bad choices, baby. But we're going to make it right. As I reached the door, Fiona called out, You'll regret this, Ramona. When you're sitting alone with no family left, you'll regret it. I turned back to face her. The only thing I regret is trusting you in the first place. We gave you everything, she screamed. We helped you when no one else would. You gave me back scraps of what you stole. That's not generosity. That's cruelty. I walked out, Adrian's small hand in mine, leaving behind the sound of my family falling apart. In the car, Adrian asked, Are we not going to see Grandma and Grandpa anymore? Not for a while, baby. Because they were mean to us? Because they made choices that hurt us. And sometimes, when people hurt us, we have to protect ourselves. He nodded solemnly, then went back to his coloring book. My phone buzzed with a text from Angela. I heard what happened. I'm proud of you, and I'm testifying on your behalf. At least someone in this family had a conscience. The formal charges were filed on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, Maria called with news that made my blood run cold. Fiona's been moving money, large transfers to offshore accounts. Her attorney is claiming she's liquidating assets to pay you back, but this looks more like she's trying to hide what's left. Can we stop her? I'm filing for an emergency asset freeze, but Ramona, if she's already moved the bulk of it, then there's nothing left to recover. I'm sorry. I hung up and immediately called the detective handling the case, Sarah Martinez. Detective Martinez, this is Ramona Jordan. I need to know, can Fiona leave the country? Not without surrendering her passport. Why? She's moving money offshore. I think she's planning to run. I'll look into it. In the meantime, stay alert. Desperate people do desperate things. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. Ramona, this is Patricia from your parents' country club. I'm calling because there's been some talk. My stomach dropped. What kind of talk? About your family's legal troubles. I thought you should know that your parents' membership is being reviewed. Reviewed? Well, the allegations are quite serious. Financial fraud reflects poorly on the club's reputation. I almost laughed. Their precious social standing was crumbling, and somehow this was my fault. I understand. I'm sorry, dear. I know this must be difficult. Difficult. Like I was going through a rough patch instead of exposing a years-long criminal conspiracy. That evening, Angela called. I just left Mom and Dad's house. It's bad, Ramona, really bad. How bad? Dad's locked himself in his study. Mom hasn't stopped crying since Sunday. And Fiona... What about Fiona? She's acting like nothing happened, making plans for their anniversary party next month like the whole family isn't falling apart. Anniversary party? The big one. 40 years of marriage. They've been planning it for months. Rented the ballroom at the Grandview Hotel. Invited 200 people. They're still having it. Fiona insists. She says canceling would be admitting guilt. She's handling all the arrangements, spending money like water. Whose money? That's what I'm wondering. I called Maria immediately. The anniversary party? Can we use that? If she's spending money that should be frozen? If we can prove she's using stolen funds for the party, absolutely. But we need evidence. I'll get it. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called Fiona directly. Ramona? Her voice was cautious. I want to talk. Face to face. I don't think that's a good idea. Mom and Dad's anniversary party. I know you're planning it. Silence. I'm willing to discuss a settlement, but I want to see where the money's going first. You want to help plan the party? I want to make sure it's worthy of them. They deserve a beautiful celebration. I could hear the wheels turning in her head. The chance to show off, to prove she was still the golden child, was too tempting. Fine. Meet me at the hotel tomorrow at 2. The Grandview Hotel was exactly the kind of place Fiona would choose. All marble and crystal, designed to impress. She was waiting in the ballroom when I arrived, surrounded by event planners and vendors. Ramona! She air-kissed me like we were best friends. I'm so glad you came. Look at this space. Isn't it perfect? The ballroom was stunning and probably cost more than I made in 6 months. How much is all this costing? Don't worry about that. I've got it handled. I'm curious. Humor me. She pulled out a tablet, scrolling through invoices. The venue was $8,000. Catering for 200 is $15,000. Flowers are $3,000. The band is $4,000. Photography, decorations, wine, $35,000. Closer to 40 with everything included. Where's the money coming from, Fiona? Her smile faltered slightly. I have savings. Your savings were frozen yesterday. The color drained from her face. I transferred some funds before the freeze. To where? That's none of your business. I pulled out my phone and started recording. So you moved money to avoid the asset freeze, and now you're spending it on a party? Stop recording me. This is evidence of contempt of court. You're violating a legal order. Turn off the phone, Ramona. $40,000. Almost exactly what you have left of Adrian's money. This party is for our parents. This party is your last hurrah before you go to prison. She lunged for my phone, but I stepped back. You're insane, she hissed. You're destroying this family over money. You destroyed this family when you decided to steal from a child. I gave you everything. I supported you when no one else would. You gave me back pennies of what you stole and called it generosity. The event planner cleared her throat uncomfortably. Perhaps we should reschedule this meeting. No need, I said, still recording. I've heard everything I need to hear. As I walked out, Fiona called after me. The party's still happening, Ramona, with or without you. We'll see about that. I sent the recording to Maria and Detective Martinez before I even reached my car. Within an hour, Maria called back. We've got her. Contempt of court, violation of the asset freeze, and now we can trace exactly where she moved the money. The party's off, and she's looking at serious jail time. Good. There's something else. The DA wants to offer her a plea deal, full restitution, and 2 years probation if she pleads guilty. No deals. Ramona, she had 5 years to do the right thing. She chose to steal more instead. No deals. The anniversary party was supposed to be in 3 weeks. Instead, it was going to be the day Fiona got arrested. Justice had its own kind of timing. The anniversary party was still happening. Despite everything, despite the legal proceedings and the family chaos, my parents decided to go ahead with their celebration. Fiona had convinced them it would show strength, that canceling would be admitting defeat. I wasn't invited, but Detective Martinez was. We'll execute the warrant at the party, she explained over the phone. Maximum impact, and all the witnesses will be in one place. You want me there? As the victim, yes. You have the right to be present when we make the arrest. I arranged for Adrian to stay with the babysitter. My son didn't need to see what was about to happen. Then I put on my best dress, the one I'd worn to job interviews and court dates, and drove to the Grand View Hotel. The ballroom was exactly as Fiona had planned it. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in ivory linens. 200 guests in their finest clothes mingled with champagne glasses, celebrating 40 years of marriage while pretending the family wasn't imploding. I slipped in through a side entrance, staying near the back. Angela spotted me immediately and made her way over. I can't believe you came. I can't believe they're still having this party. Mom's been crying all week, but Fiona convinced her it was the right thing to do. Said the family needed to show unity. Where is she? Angela nodded toward the front of the room, where Fiona stood near the head table in a stunning red dress, playing hostess like she owned the place. She was laughing with guests, accepting compliments on the beautiful event, basking in the attention. She's been telling everyone that the legal troubles are just a misunderstanding, Angela whispered, that you're having a breakdown and making false accusations. Of course she is. My parents sat at the head table, looking older than I'd ever seen them. Dad kept checking his watch, while Mom smiled weakly at well-wishers. They both looked like they were attending a funeral instead of their own anniversary party. The speeches began. Family friends stood up to toast my parents' marriage, their successful business, their wonderful daughters. Each mention of family unity felt like a knife twist. Then Fiona took the microphone. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate my parents' incredible 40-year journey together. Her voice carried across the room, confident and clear. Family is everything to the Richards family. We support each other through good times and bad, and we never let outside forces tear us apart. She looked directly at me when she said it. Mom and Dad taught us that loyalty means everything. That family comes first, always. And that's a lesson I've carried with me every day of my life. The crowd murmured approval. I felt sick. So please, raise your glasses to Miguel and Noelle Richards. The ballroom doors burst open. Detective Martinez walked in flanked by 2 uniformed officers, their presence immediately commanding the room's attention. Conversations died mid-sentence. Champagne glasses froze halfway to lips. Fiona Richards? Detective Martinez's voice cut through the silence. Fiona's face went white. The microphone slipped from her hand. hitting the floor with a sharp squeal of feedback. You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. The room erupted. Guests gasped. Chairs scraped against the floor as people stood for a better view. Someone's phone was already out, recording. "This is a mistake," Fiona said, her voice shaking. "I haven't done anything wrong." "You have the right to remain silent," Detective Martinez continued, pulling out handcuffs. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." "Mom!" Fiona looked desperately at our parents. "Tell them this is insane." But Mom just sat there, tears streaming down her face. Dad had his head in his hands. "You have the right to an attorney," Detective Martinez continued as she cuffed Fiona's hands behind her back. "If you can't afford an attorney, one will be provided for you." "This is my parents' anniversary," Fiona screamed as they led her toward the door. "You can't do this here." "We can do this anywhere a crime has been committed," Detective Martinez replied calmly. As they reached the door, Fiona spotted me in the crowd, her face contorted with rage. "This is all your fault," she shrieked. "You destroyed this family. You destroyed everything." The officers kept walking, but her voice carried back into the ballroom. "You're nothing without us, Ramona. Nothing. You'll regret this for the rest of your life." Then she was gone, and the ballroom fell into stunned silence. I walked to the front of the room, past tables full of shocked faces and whispered conversations. My parents looked up at me with expressions I couldn't read. Shame, anger, grief, all mixed together. "The woman you just watched get arrested," I said, my voice carrying in the quiet room, "stole $50,000 in child support payments from my 5-year-old son. For 5 years, she let him go without while she spent his money on luxury items and family gifts." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "She forged legal documents. She manipulated court proceedings. She lied to everyone in this room about where her money came from." I looked at my parents, and some of you knew, some of you suspected, but you chose to look the other way because it was easier than asking hard questions. Mom started sobbing. Dad still wouldn't look at me. "I didn't want it to happen this way," I continued, "but when someone steals from a child, when they destroy a family with lies and greed, there have to be consequences." I turned to leave, then stopped. "Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. I hope it was worth it." The ballroom stayed silent as I walked out, leaving behind the wreckage of 40 years of marriage and a family that would never be the same. The newspaper headline read, "Local woman arrested for child support fraud at parents' anniversary party." The article included a photo of Fiona being led away in handcuffs, her red dress a stark contrast to the silver bracelets around her wrists. I folded the paper and set it aside as Adrian climbed into my lap with his cereal bowl. "Mommy, why is Aunt Fiona in the newspaper?" "Because she made some very bad choices, baby." "Is she going to jail?" "Probably." He nodded seriously, then went back to his cereal. At 5, he understood more than I wished he had to. My phone rang. Cruz. "I saw the news. How are you holding up?" "I'm okay. We're okay. The restitution hearing is next week. My lawyer says we should get most of it back." "Most?" "She spent about $15,000 that can't be recovered, but the rest is coming back to us, plus interest and penalties. $35,000. Not the full 50, but enough to change everything for Adrian and me." "There's something else," Cruz said. "I want to start seeing Adrian regularly. Real visits, not just the awkward supervised ones we tried before." "Cruz, I know I screwed up during our marriage. I was distant. I didn't communicate. I let my pride get in the way. But I never stopped caring about him and finding out that I was paying support all along, that I wasn't the deadbeat everyone thought I was. It changes things." I watched Adrian carefully arranging his cereal by color. "He asks about you, why you don't love him enough to help us." "Jesus, Ramona, I'm so sorry. He deserves to know his father tried. He deserves to have a relationship with you." "I'd like that. I'd like that a lot." The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Angela holding a casserole dish and looking nervous. I brought dinner, she said when I opened the door. I wasn't sure if you were eating. Come in. She set the dish on my counter and turned to face me. I testified yesterday, at Fiona's arraignment. I heard. I told them about the money she gave Mom and Dad, about the vacation house purchases, about all the time she flashed cash and claimed it was work bonuses. Thank you. The prosecutor says she'll probably get 3 to 5 years, more if she doesn't cooperate. Good. Angela sat down at my kitchen table. Mom wants to see you. I'm sure she does. She's not doing well, Ramona. The stress, the public humiliation. She had to be hospitalized yesterday. I felt a flicker of something. Not quite sympathy, but not satisfaction either. What does she want? To apologize? To explain? There's nothing to explain. She chose to look the other way while her daughter stole from her grandson. She says she didn't know the full extent. She knew enough. Angela sighed. What about Dad? What about him? He's lost everything. The business reputation, the country club membership, most of their friends. He sits in his study all day, staring at the wall. Actions have consequences, even for family. I looked at Adrian, who was now building a tower with his cereal pieces, especially for family. Family is supposed to protect each other, not prey on each other. So that's it? You're done with all of us? I'm done with the version of this family that enabled theft and called it love. I'm done with people who gave me scraps of my own money and expected gratitude. What about the people who didn't know? What about me? I studied her face. Angela had always been different, quieter, more observant, less caught up in the family drama. She testified against Fiona when it mattered. You're here, aren't you? I am. Then you're not done. My phone buzzed with a text from Maria. Restitution approved. Check will be processed within 48 hours. Also, Fiona's attorney called about a plea deal. She wants to talk. I showed Angela the message. Are you going to talk to her? No. She had 5 years to talk to me. She chose to steal instead. She's family, Ramona. So is Adrian, and he's the family I choose to protect. That evening, I sat with Adrian as he colored in his workbook. The apartment felt different somehow, lighter, like a weight had been lifted from the air itself. Mommy? Yes, baby? Are we rich now? I laughed. Not rich, but we're going to be okay. Can we get the good mac and cheese? We can get whatever mac and cheese you want. He grinned and went back to his coloring. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Tomorrow, I'd quit one of my jobs. Next week, I'd start looking for a better apartment. Next month, Adrian would start seeing his father regularly. The family I'd grown up with was broken, maybe beyond repair. But the family I was building, with Adrian, with Cruz, with people like Angela who chose truth over comfort, that family was just beginning. My phone rang one more time. Unknown number. Hello? Ramona, this is Fiona. I get one phone call and I hung up. Some conversations were over before they started. Some bridges were meant to burn. I turned off my phone and helped Adrian finish his coloring. We had better things to do than listen to excuses from thieves.